Immortal Cultivation begins with time management. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51. I shouldn't talk back to my senior brother. The next day, the envoys boarded the treasure ship and headed west back to Kunlun. Song-hye sat near the stern, silently looking at the sea of clouds outside the window. The main purpose of the visit of Ziwi's sect master to Penglai King Temple this time was to finalize the matter of the two sects' foundation building disciples going to the Lee Palace together. Although it was a relic of the ancient sect's secret realm, the three sects have now established their own sects, and the relationship is not ironclad. In addition, the Lee Palace secret realm is located deep in the East China Sea, and its access mechanism is controlled by Penglai King Temple. Therefore, if Kunlun disciples want to participate in the Lee Palace trial, they must be recognized by King Temple. In short, not to mention the trivial matters of interest exchange, the two sects finally reached an agreement, and the list of disciples who will jointly go to the Lee Palace for training has been determined. His junior brothers Zhao Wenqing and Qie Yuan, both of whom had just entered the Watu stage, wanted to use the power of the Lee Palace to quickly transform the Purple Mansion and leave time for perfection, so they were successfully included in the list. Qiu Changtai and Zhu Yingyan were also included in the list in order to allow them to skip the long stage of refining Qi into the body. The Ligong secret realm is located in the East China Sea and is within the sphere of influence of Yu King Temple. It is impossible for the headmaster to let him take the Chi-light-splitting sword, the treasure of the sect, with him. In addition, non-foundation building disciples cannot enter the secret realm, so a rare time window appears. A time window that isolates Qiu Changtai without magic weapons and the protection of elders is the most suitable time to attack him. Song-hye stretched out his fingers and gently rubbed his eyebrows. Last night, he went to visit an old acquaintance of Yu King Temple and got the content of the trial of the Ligong secret realm from him. In the secret realm, the world is extremely large and boundless. If you want to find other Taoist friends and break through together, it is theoretically feasible. However, when entering the secret realm, the Ligong restriction will identify the soul of the entrant and deliberately teleport each person to different places. Due to the different initial positions and the different order of passing the levels, it is difficult for the trial participants to meet. But there is one place that all trial participants will definitely arrive at, just in different order. That is the endpoint after passing the level, the main hall of the Lee Palace. As long as you pass the level before Qiu Changtai, you can ambush him at the gate of the Lee Palace. With Qiu Changtai's qualifications, his clearance speed is likely to be ahead of most people. As long as you can arrive earlier than him, ambush him, and use powerful magic weapons to kill him quickly, the probability of success is very high. As for the aftermath, it is even simpler. As long as the Lee Palace secret realm is closed, it is unknown when it will be opened next time, and the cause of his death will be completely untraceable. You know, in order to prevent someone from covering up the secrets of heaven and cheating, the restrictions of the Lee Palace secret realm have even roughly blocked the means of investigation by numerology and divination. Just as Song-hye was calculating, Zhao Ding, Luo Yan and Shilili were also called over by Elder Shi Ding. You have also learned about the Lee Palace from the eldest brother, right? Elder Shi Ding said solemnly, the efficiency of the Three Flowers Gathering Spirit technique of our Tiangong fan lineage is not very high. So, with the help of this Lee Palace secret realm, you can skip the originally long process of filling the Sea of Qi, which is a rare opportunity for you. Seeing his expression so solemn, Luo Yan and Shilili also sat up seriously and listened patiently to the instructions of Elder Shi Ding. The Lee Palace trial secret realm is divided into 6 levels, namely the first line of fire prison level, the 2 worlds of red dust level, the 3 types of beast level, the 4 kingshura level, the 6th heavenly demon level, and the 10 palaces of Fendu level. Among them, the fire prison, shura, and Fendu levels all test combat capabilities. The red dust, beasts, and heavenly demons all test your state of mind and understanding. After entering, the Lee Palace restriction will randomly teleport you to a level. As long as you can successfully pass the level, you will be randomly teleported to the next level, making it difficult for you to meet each other. So, you must pass the level by yourself, and don't trust anyone you meet, whether you know each other or not. You must treat it as if you don't know each other. Disciple knows, daughter knows. Luo Yan and Shilili responded respectively. Well. Elder Shi Ding pondered for a moment, and then sighed. The so-called Qi refining stage is not only the process of drawing Qi into the body, but also the process of nourishing Qi and purifying the mind. Key refining stage, as the first level of a cultivator, often takes 30 or 40 years, which is actually a kind of tempering of the heart of Tao. Whether you can endure loneliness and keep your original heart is the key to subsequent cultivation. You skip this stage with the help of the Leave Palace secret realm. I don't know whether it is good or bad. Elder Shiding sighed for a moment, then slowly left with his hands behind his back. Humph. As soon as he left, Shili jumped up and said, "Father looks down on me again." Master is not without reason. Luoyan just made a smooth talk, and was glared at by Mishi, who glared at him and shut up. Do heart, I don't have a do heart. Shili said angrily, "Isn't this girl a genius in cultivation? Who stipulated that others have to cultivate for 30 or 40 years to reach the key refining stage? I must be like them and cultivate for 30 or 40 years. Senior sister, you're absolutely right." Luoyan could only flatter against his will. "Master, as a father, I always subconsciously treat my children as children." "Then what?" Shili asked with a squint. "But in fact, with senior sister's qualifications, there is no need to worry at all." Luoyan smiled. "Hypocritical personality, synchronization value +1. That's right." Shili said as a matter of course, and smiled with satisfaction. "Junior brother still understands me. Alas, although my qualifications are not as good as the Taoist heart of Chief Kiyu, it is not bad compared with my senior brothers and sisters, right? They took 1 or 2 months to break through the 3 levels, but I cultivated the Sea of Ki in half a month. To be honest, it is true." Luoyan flattered him again. "It takes half a month to cultivate the Sea of Ki. What kind of Taoist qualifications do you need? I guess it took Master more than half a month to break through the 3 levels. Junior brother, I'll tell you secretly, you were not allowed to tell others. Father's qualifications were not good back then." Shili smiled and whispered to him, "It took him 1 month and 13 days. Luoyan was speechless when he heard this. "Mishi, it is said that family disgrace should not be made public. Your behavior is really filial. Of course, to a certain extent, it also reflects the depth of Shili's trust in him. Anyway, since Mishi was completely unaware of the relationship between Qiu Changtime and Luoyan, she could rest assured to reload Qiu Changtime's file again, and then start preparing for the trip to the secret realm outside the palace. Reload the file back to last night, put on Qiu Changtime's template, and spent the night in the room. The next morning, Qiu Changtime and everyone else boarded the treasure ship back to Kunlin. After arriving at Yinling, Qiu Changtime said to Zhu Yingyan, "Junior sister, go back first, I still have things to do." "Oh." Zhu Yingyan didn't ask much, just pressed the sword light and landed at the door of her own cave. Qiu Changtime controlled the sword light and arrived at the door of Jian Qingnan's cave, and rushed in aggressively. But in a moment, Jian Qingnan, who was caught red-handed, confessed everything under the questioning of the chief senior brother. "In fact, these hard knots are all fake. They are the hair I found someone to collect at Chud Market. Hectares, dare to use fake goods to deceive people?" Qiu Changtime warned her seriously. "Hair and nails, if they fall off within a month, they may be used as carriers of cursed secrets. Did you know that?" "Of course I know." Jian Qingnan said aggrievedly. "However, most of these cursed secrets have been lost. In ancient times, there was also the 7 Arrows book, which said that as long as you know a person's name, you don't need hair or nails to sense the other person's soul. According to this statement, even the name cannot be revealed." Qiu Changtime was furious and interrupted her. "You dare to talk back?" "I dare not." Jian Qingnan quickly shrank her head. "Say junior sister shouldn't talk back to senior brother 10 times. Louder." "Junior sister shouldn't talk back to senior brother." Jian Qingnan was about to cry. Chapter 52. The cheat finally worked. After about a week, the day of opening the palace finally arrived. The East Sea Palace is located in the remote abyss in the east of Yingzhou, and is 3,000 feet deep. If there were no high-level magic weapons of Yuning people, ordinary cultivators would have been crushed into meat paste by the huge water pressure at this depth. At this time, above the sea, all kinds of dragon boats and shuttle boats were densely packed, all of which were cultivators from Kunlun and Penglai sects. Qiu Changtian, Zhu Yinlian, and disciples of the current headmaster, such as Pionzhen and Yan Zichui, were standing on the deck of the warship, waiting for the opening of the underwater palace. Shili was dressed beautifully today, and she was talking to Qiu Changtian beside her. As for Luoyan, as himself in the future timeline, he was probably hiding somewhere. On the deck, Qiu Changtian politely and modestly dealt with Mishi, feeling extremely helpless. Zhu Yinglyan stood on the side of the ship, staring at the sea in silence. Occasionally, he turned his head and looked at his senior brother and Chilili with contemptuous eyes, as if he was looking at a stink bug, which made Qiu Chang's back numb. As for the other unscrupulous junior brothers and sisters, they didn't know how to come to help their senior brother, but just hid behind and pointed and laughed. Qiu Chang smiled at the sea in the distance, and he had already thought of thousands of ways to deal with them. Well, I will attack you when I return to Kunlin, just wait. On another shuttle boat, Zhao Wenqing and Qiu Yuan stood side by side in the corner of the deck, looking at the sea with a serious look. For this plan, senior brother Song He used all the resources accumulated for nearly 100 years to barely get 2 10th level magic weapons for the two of them. They were all imitations of acquired spiritual treasures and were extremely powerful. This time, they would use the power of the 2 10th level magic weapons to pass the level as quickly as possible, and then ambush Qiu Chang in the square in front of the main hall of the palace at the end to kill him. At 3 o'clock in the morning, a stream of fire suddenly surged onto the surface of the sea. Everyone looked down along the side of the ship, and saw that a few feet below the sea, there were colorful water waves, swaying like silk, and rolling like clouds and cotton, which was extremely dazzling. The East Sea Palace was opened on time at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Suddenly, all kinds of immortal magic weapons, shuttle boats and ships on the sea surface dived into the sea at the same time. Diving to the depths, you can see a brilliant palace gate, quietly shrouded in the water film. Many warships stocked in it, and the master of Yu King Temple stood at the bow, with his hands behind his back, saying, "The palace has been opened, all disciples quickly enter it and accept the test. After 3 days, the palace gate will close, and you must escape before then, without any mistakes." As soon as the voice fell, countless rainbow lights rose up in response, from above each ship to the palace gate. All the disciples from Kunlun and Penglai flew up on their swords, transformed into streams of light, and fled into the towering palace gate along the rainbow bridge. Qiu Chang also flew forward on his sword, and suddenly saw Zhu Yinglyan whizzing past him and rushing into the palace gate first. What's there to argue about? He was a little speechless. Then he followed and fled in. His perspective was spinning, and when he came to his senses, Qiu Chang found himself standing in the middle of a wasteland. The sky was black, the earth was black, the light was dim, and there were countless shadows swaying in the distance, trembling dimly, which made people feel creepy. "This is the 10 palaces of Fendu," someone next to him said. Qiu Chang turned his head and looked. Damn. It was Luo Yan. The person standing next to him had fluffy hair, narrowed eyes, and exuded a harmless aura. He was not one of his fake identities, Luo Yan, a disciple of Penglai Yu King Temple. Who else could he be? "Don't panic, listen to me," Luo Yan said expressionlessly. "I'm you from the future timeline. To be precise, I'm you who returned to the cabin of the ship outside after I completely cleared the palace and left, and immediately reloaded the Luo Yan line. This time, I came to help you resolve the upcoming disaster. You can verify my identity through the Kunlun mirror, because I also have a Kunlun mirror." "A mirror?" Qiu Chang called in his heart. "Is this really me in the future?" "Yes." The Kunlun mirror replied, and the future Kunlun mirror spoke to me. "What did it say?" "It said that I should write down all of Luo Yan's current words." The Kunlun mirror said helplessly, "When you follow that timeline and reach his current time point, I will reproduce these lines and let you play Luo Yan and recite them to the past Qiu Chang. Qiu Chang. So the Luo Yan on the opposite side is reciting the lines, right? No wonder it tastes a bit like a great reading. But since the Kunlun mirror has been authenticated, the Luo Yan on the opposite side is indeed the future self. You must know." Luo Yan continued to read, "What I am saying now are what I heard the future Luo Yan say when I was playing Qiu Chang at your time. And his lines are also what he heard the future Luo Yan say when he was playing Qiu Chang in the past. Then you must want to ask, where is the origin of this time loop?" At this point, Luo Yan's voice paused. "Don't care about these details. Where does time begin? Where does it end? Unless you can comprehend the avenue of time, don't explore these details, just think of these lines as written for you by the avenue of time." Qiu Chang. "Okay, I won't ask then." Luo Yan continued, "The reason why I met you here is because the Li Palace restriction can identify different practitioners based on their souls and teleport them to different locations. Mirror Flower Water Moon has no way to disguise the soul, and our souls are the same, so we were teleported to the same place. This is the weakness of Mirror Flower Water Moon, you must remember it in the future." Qiu Chang nodded. Although he still had thousands of questions to ask, he didn't say a word at this time. Because he knew that the more he asked at this time, the more Luo Yan would have to answer. Then when he plays Luo Yan in the future, he will also have to recite longer lines with Qiu Chang's High in the past, so it's better not to cause trouble for yourself. The most important thing at the moment is, of course, what Luo Yan said, to resolve the disaster that he is about to encounter. Luo Yan continued woodenly. This is the 10 palaces of Fendu, simulating the great terror between life and death, testing your ability to challenge terror. My future self has helped me clear it once, now it's my turn to help you clear it again, completing this cycle of cause and effect. Follow me. He flew forward with the sword light, saying, "This is a 9th level wood flying sword, named to." After you read the game Luo Yan, remember to ask the senior brother for one. Qiu Chang's High looked at the pink sword light under his feet, hesitant to speak. Forget it, after all, it is history that has already happened and cannot be changed. Girly pink is girly pink. In addition, you need to borrow something from Shiluli. Luo Yan continued, flipping his palm, and a small seal appeared on it. It is the imitation magic weapon Flip Heaven seal she used before. Qiu Chang's High. You must be wondering why Mishi would lend it to you. Luo Yan said, "Don't ask, just lend it to me. Next, watch carefully and see how I lead you through the whole process." Qiu Chang's High was speechless and could only smile and nod. After all, the person in front of him was his future self. The memories in his mind were like a guide for himself at this moment. What is a cheat code? This is a cheat code. Arjun, the Eternal God. Kunlun Mirror. Chapter 53. Crossing the Forgotten River and drinking mango soup. Qiu Chang's High followed Luo Yan closely, and the two of them rode the sword light and rushed into the depths of Fendu. The design of the 10 palaces Fendu Pass is also very unique, and it is said that it refers to the real underworld. There is a gloomy aura and ghosts everywhere, which makes people feel uneasy instinctively. If it were normal, he would still be in the mood to explore. But now he is following the future Luo Yan, and he is in a hurry to stay. After walking for dozens of minutes, a tall building appeared in front of them, which seemed to be an ancient city tower, and it was hideous and terrifying in the night. This is the gate of hell. Luo Yan reminded. The two of them swooped down with sword lights, and suddenly a soul-collecting messenger wearing a dark banner and a long tongue swayed into the air and said quietly, "Stop, visitor. This is the gate of hell, do you have a pass?" Luo Yan ignored it and just said, "This is a small checkpoint. Trialists can accept its task, go to the nearby area to find lost ghosts, and then come back to exchange them for a pass. But we don't have the time." After saying that, Luo Yan hurriedly pinched the magic formula and blasted the soul-collecting messenger with a jade pivot divine thunder, directly knocking the soul-collecting messenger over. The soul-collecting messenger's cultivation level was not high, and he was caught off guard, so he didn't even have the protective ghost energy, and was blown to pieces on the spot. This thunderclap resounded through the world. There were also some trialists around, who were teleported to the 10 palaces of Fendu. After negotiating with the soul-catching messenger, he was looking for lonely ghosts everywhere. He turned around in surprise, but only saw 2 sword lights escaping into the ghost gate, and the soul-catching messenger disappeared. No way. What kind of master is that? He actually broke into the door directly. Everyone rushed to check, and just happened to encounter the underworld soldiers who rushed out of the ghost gate in shock. There was another fight and a melee, and they were hacked to death. Qiu Chang's High was the fastest runner following Luo Yan, so he accidentally escaped. The two flew all the way on the Yellow Spring Road. The true energy extracted from the 9 Heavens Kingway entering the realm Mentra was extremely pure and had a strong endurance. In addition to the sword-controlling essence learned from Shushan, the speed of the two people sword-controlling at this time has far exceeded the level of ordinary practitioners, so the surrounding ghosts and monsters that blocked the road could not catch up at all. Just like this, they flew all the way, rushed directly across the Yellow Spring Road, and arrived at a river. Then, a ban was descended out of thin air, oppressing the two people so that they could not control their swords. "This is the Wangchuan River," Luo Yan said. "There is a wooden bridge on the Wangchuan River, called the Nehi Bridge. Due to the restrictions, we must walk over. Follow me closely and don't walk around." Qiu Chang's High. "You want to take advantage of me verbally? Something is wrong with you." The two ran to the bridge, and saw that the river water under the bridge was bloody and turbid, and countless slender dark ghost hands stretched out from it, trying to drag the two into the water. Luo Yan manipulated the Toho sword, and the pink light flew past quickly, and anyone who touched it had their skin ulcerated and turned into blood and water, killing countless ghost hands and causing them to twitch and dance all over the sky. As he flew his sword, he recited the lines indifferently. If it were the real Wangchuan River in the underworld, falling into it would mean the separation of flesh and blood, the trapping of soul, and the eternal inability to reincarnate. But in this trial illusion, the result of falling into the water is just failure to pass the level and expulsion from the palace. The further you go on the bridge, the more lonely ghosts will attack you, so remember to buy more Yansong talismans at Yu King Temple before leaving and bring them with you. As soon as he finished speaking, Luo Yan suddenly flew up the magic weapon talisman. The talismans were all large-ticket Yansong talismans, which were thrown forward like crazy, burning the ghosts' hands and making them squeak and shake. The magic weapon was Mishi's signature Tianfen seal, which was also spinning in the air, hitting any hand it saw. The ghosts' hands were torn and their tendons were broken, so they had to retreat back to the Wangchuan River and never dared to show up again. The two continued to move towards the bridge. As Luo Yan said, the higher they went, the more ghost hands stretched out from under the bridge. The individual strength of these ghost hands was not strong, but they were almost numerous and the angles were extremely tricky. If ordinary practitioners encountered them, they would naturally suffer a lot. However, Luo Yan seemed to be well prepared. He sprinkled the Yansong talisman in his hand one after another, almost setting the entire wooden bridge on fire. The Tianfen seal was also extremely sharp. Occasionally, there were powerful ghost hands rushing in with a sea of fire, and they would be beaten to pieces. Qiu Changtian was still a little shocked until he crossed the Nahi Bridge and came to the other side. Just walked here safely? After crossing the Wangchuan River, it is the Wangxibang Terrace. Luo Yan suddenly pointed to the front and said, I saw an old woman blocking the road in front of the Wangxibang Terrace, setting up a small table with a row of large bowls on the table. This Mengpo stall sells Mengpo soup. Luo Yan said woodenly, according to the normal order of passing the customs, you naturally have to drink the soup before you can move forward. Besides, drinking it will also be of great benefit to you. Qiu Changtian pondered for a moment, then nodded and went over to get a bowl from the stall. The soup was neither white nor oily, and it was turbid. It smelled hot but not very fragrant. He tilted his head back and drank it all up. In an instant, countless memories of the family alleys, high-rise buildings, and school playgrounds from the time he was born until now flashed through his mind. The voices and smiles of his parents, relatives, teachers, and friends in his previous life were all in front of him, but they passed away quickly. Unconsciously, an inexplicable emotion rose from his heart, and 2 lines of tears flowed from his eyes. Why do you want to practice Taoism? A voice in the dark asked him. He was originally immersed in great disappointment, but fortunately, he had a clear mind, and he answered. To seek immortality. To seek great freedom and freedom. To seek to jump out of the 3 realms, the 5 elements, the 6 reincarnations, and ascend to the supreme throne of the sky. To seek the great power to belong to oneself, and no longer be bound by the world. The voice faded away in an instant. When he came to his senses, he found that he was refreshed, all the loopholes in his state of mind were filled, and even his cultivation was faintly improved. Realizing the benefits, he changed his mind and looked at Luo Yan. As a result, Mengpo immediately stretched out her old hand with a dry claw, protected the soup bowls and said, One person is limited to 1 bowl, drinking more is useless. Luo Yan said indifferently. Being able to recognize that you and I are originally one person, this Mengpo is also part of the restriction of the palace, so there is no need to worry. Qiu Changtian nodded, secretly saying it was a pity. The 2 of them moved forward at full speed again. After passing the Wangxibang Terrace, the Black Dog Ridge was in front. Although the mountain road was rugged and difficult to walk, it was not a problem for the monks. However, from time to time, there were evil dogs and ghosts that would attack in the dark and bite people's hands and feet. Luo Yan was silent and did not wait for Qiu Changtian to take action. He just raised the Toho sword and the Fanchen seal and beat the dogs wildly, making them whimper. After a while, many evil ghosts came with their hair and clothes flying, and shouted at the 2 of them. These dogs are so cute, why do you want to kill them? The words sounded like a tight spell, which made Qiu Changtian have a headache. Looking at Luo Yan again, he did not argue with them at all, but beat them directly. Many evil ghosts had their heads and brains broken, and they ran around in panic. In an instant, they were all destroyed. In the middle of the spiritual corpses on the ground, there was something shining, but it was unknown whether it was a person or a dog that exploded. Luo Yan picked it up and put it away, saying in a deep voice, "This item is called Black Dog Nail. It is made from the hot blood of a strong male dog's neck, and it has the effect of exorcising evil spirits. We will use it later." Chapter 54. Clear Fendu City and meet Sisters Yu again. After passing the Black Dog Ridge, there is the Golden Rooster Mountain. Although the mountain road is more rugged and difficult to walk, it is still not a problem for the monks. However, from time to time, there are always those pheasant ghosts, taking advantage of the night to attack them, pecking at their faces, trying to bite their skin, flesh and eyes. Luo Yan still had a sullen face and did not speak. He continued to use his flying sword and magic weapon to beat the pheasants all over the ground, making them fly all over the ground and cry miserably. After a while, many evil ghosts in plain clothes came and whispered to the two of them. "These flying creatures also have a sense of pain. Isn't it cruel to kill them like this? Why don't you follow us and eat vegetarian food?" Qiu Changtian felt a tightness in his chest, but he saw Luo Yan said nothing, so he killed these evil ghosts as pheasants. As a result, another object exploded, which looked like a chicken feather arrow. Luo Yan went forward to pick it up, carefully put it away, and said, "This is a chicken feather arrow, just like the Black Dog Nail. It has the effect of exorcising evil spirits, and it will be used later." After passing Jimchi Mountain, it is the Wild Ghost Village. The road in this Wild Ghost Village is not difficult to walk, but the houses are in disarray, making it difficult to identify the direction. And from time to time, there are ragged ghosts with green eyes, rushing ferociously from the dark corners. Luo Yan didn't care about it, and beat them up without saying anything. After a while, many neatly dressed evil ghosts came out with a kind face, pointing at the corpses of the wild ghosts and said, "These refugees, shut up." The devilish sound came into his ears again, and Qiu Changtian's blood pressure was immediately raised, and he used the Jade Pivot Thunder to beat them randomly. Since the previous Evil Dog Ridge, there have always been these unknown ghosts and monsters coming out to give the two a strange lecture. Not only was the nonsense meaningless, but the other side kept talking and shouting, which just kept drilling into his brain. Even though he was a clear-minded person, he could not withstand such a terrifying mental attack. He could only cooperate with Luo Yan to kill directly. After a few thunder spells, it seemed that the whole world was quiet. Luo Yan picked up an object from the ground, which looked like a red rope. He put it together with the previous Black Dog Nail and Chicken Feather Arrow, and the three merged and turned into a token. The front side was written with Yin, and the back side was written with Yang. It was neither gold nor jade, and no one knew what the material was. "This is the Yin-Yang order." Luo Yan whispered, "Take this, and you can enter Fendu City." The two continued to walk deeper and arrived at the Hall of Bewitching Souls. There was a person who was sitting high up and his face was not clear. He said, "Stay, drink the Bewitching Soul water, and enter Fendu City to accept the final challenge." Luo Yan did not answer, but showed the Yin-Yang order in his hand. The man waved his hand slightly, and took the tokens of the two people out of thin air, and said with a smile, "Okay, with this token, you don't have to drink the soul bewitching water." He waved his hand, and the back wall opened a door, indicating that the two people could pass through. "If you drink the soul bewitching water, you will suffer the pain of reduced intelligence." Luo Yan led Qiu Changtian through the hole in the wall and walked deeper. "If you don't drink the soul bewitching water, it will be easier to fight the next item clone. Pay attention to my gestures later. Wherever I hit the heaven-flipping seal, you should shoot the Jade Pivot Thunder there." Qiu Changtian nodded seriously. When the two entered Fendu City, they saw white paper money flying all over the sky, dancing like snow, and the blue stone ground was also full of lit candles, sparks jumping, light and shadows swaying. In the houses on both sides of the street, behind the window frames, there were faint shadows swaying, but no human voices were heard. In front of them, a huge strange beast was lying in the middle of the street surrounded by candlelight, licking its claws lazily. The strange beast looked like a tiger but not a tiger, but had a single horn. It looked like a dog but not a dog, but had scales, and was completely white. It suddenly turned its head. "Wait!" Luo Yan immediately raised his hand and shouted, "Venerable Daitin, look at the two of us, who is real and who is fake?" The strange beast's face showed a human-like suspicious look. It first looked at Luo Yan, then at Qiu Changtian, and found that both of them had traces of illusion disguise. But if you use your magical powers to see through the illusion disguise, the soul inside is exactly the same. But how can there be two identical souls in this world? So the strange beast turned its head to the side, as if trying to distinguish the two people's voices. As a result, as soon as it turned its head, it was hit on the head by Luo Yan's flipping heaven seal. Kyo Chang's iron was ready to go, and another jade pivot thunder shot out, penetrating into the wound on the strange beast's head and exploding, blood like a waterfall. The beast shook its head in pain, but Luo Yan was quick to fire a jade pivot thunder, which penetrated the beast's head again. This time, the head exploded, and countless red and white colors were sprayed all over the ground, like a huge dye vat bursting. In this way, the 10 palaces fend to pass will be broken. Kyo Chang's iron only heard Luo Yan say this faintly, and then his vision began to spin. When he opened his eyes again, he was already in another world. The sky here was bloody and the ground was red. The clouds in the sky were like fire, and the red clouds were thousands of miles away, and the sun was invisible. The fields were also full of red soil. When you stepped on it, red liquid began to ooze out, like dirty blood. This is the land of the 4 kings Azuras. Luo Yan said woodenly, the Azuras live here, led by 4 Azura kings, namely, Virachis, Rakitra, Vimalakirti and Rahu. Kyo Chang's iron quickly memorized the 4 names and recited them several times in his mind. Well, you don't have to remember these names. Luo Yan waited until he remembered all 4 names, then slowly said, I'm just giving you some general knowledge, maybe it will be useful in the future. Kyo Chang's iron. The Azuras have been fighting with the Celestials led by Indra for many years. Luo Yan said expressionlessly, the content of this level's trial is to help the Azuras defeat Indra who robbed the Azura beauty. Indra robbed the Azura beauty? Kyo Chang's iron wondered in his heart, would there be any plots that are not suitable for children? You are wondering if there are any scenes that are not suitable for children. Luo Yan said woodenly, the answer is no, because this is not the Azura Road, but just an illusion of the secret realm of the Li Palace. The 4 kings Azura land tests your desire to win. The road is narrow, and you will inevitably have to compete with others. Cowards who were afraid of the front will find it difficult to find the road. Kyo Chang's iron was silent after hearing this, thinking that Sisters Yu would be like a fish in water here. Well. Luo Yan was silent for a moment, and sighed, Sisters Yu is more than like a fish in water. Kyo Chang's iron. Come with me. Luo Yan took him up on the sword. The 2 turned into streams of light and quickly crossed the red plain. They saw that the trees below had no branches and leaves, and their stems were twisted like ghosts. Most of the grass leaves were also withered and scorched, and the leaves were as thin as needles. After walking a few miles, they encountered a large river. The water was red, and it was as bright as blood. There was a huge army fighting on the other side. One of them was wearing a necklace and could fly at a low altitude. He smashed the vessel in his hand towards the other side, and each time it hit, a bolt of lightning struck down. However, judging from its power, it seemed not as powerful as Kyo Chang's iron's jade pivot thunder. Although the other party stood barefoot on the ground, they all had 4 arms. The men had bulging hair and beards and were ugly. The women were slender and beautiful. But regardless of whether they were men or women, they all held bladed wheels in their 4 hands and threw them into the air with great force. Thunder and lightning struck, and the blade wheels danced. People on both sides were constantly killed in the battle, some of them had their hands and feet cut off by the blade wheels, and some were hit by lightning in the vital parts. The corpses fell to the ground, and a lot of blood flowed out, dyeing the surrounding ground even more crimson. Kyo Chang's iron seemed to know other fields in the 4 Kingshire land were all red. Well, who was that? His sight passed over the river, and he saw a fairy in white riding a sword in the distance, chanting a spell. The phoenix leaves the sky, and the fire clouds begin to spread. As soon as the voice fell, the sword light separated into countless flaming birds, which rushed towards the flying army wearing necklaces. In the blink of an eye, countless fire people screamed and struggled, falling from the sky like rain. So the 4-armed clan on the ground cheered, and the fairy in white was unmoved, just pointing the flying sword forward, urging them to quickly clear the enemy and continue to move forward. This fairy in white was Kyo Chang's iron's junior sisters Yu Yinbayan. Chapter 55. Killing Imperation, Junior Sister Furious. These 4-armed people are the Azuras. Those flying people are the Celestials. Taking Kyo Chang's iron forward quietly, following behind Zhu Yinbayan and the Azuras, Luo Yan explained in a low voice. The goal of this level is to defeat Indra. And in order to find Indra, you must first defeat the Celestials blocking the way. What Zhu Yinbayan did is the normal way to pass the level, which is to escort the Azuras to the battle and just kill their way through. But there is a more labor-saving way, which is to follow her quietly like we did. When she defeats the last Celestial army, we will quickly pass the Azuras and rush to the back to secretly kill Indra. Kyo Chang's iron was stunned when he heard this. Isn't this just stealing the boss? Yes, it's to grab the boss. Luo Yan said expressionlessly. According to the meaning of the 5 decays of heavenly beings, Emperor Shishin will be revived with full health every 5/4 of an hour. Whoever can kill him first can advance to the next level early. And the clearance time is very important to us. He said word by word, even 1 second in advance must be fought for. Somehow, Qiu Changtian felt that his last sentence seemed to have a meaningful meaning. The two continued to follow Zhu Yinlian, and saw Sister Zhu showing her power in various ways. Kunlun's sword controlling technique made it fly up, cutting down a large number of heavenly beings, and from time to time, it would launch the sword controlling method, and countless firebirds flew out and whistled away. These firebirds are composed of high-temperature blazing flames, and their flying speed is extremely fast. They are not susceptible to the lightning attacks of heavenly beings, and they are extremely efficient in harvesting on the battlefield. With one victory after another, Zhu Yinlian also gradually became excited from the initial coldness and silence. Fighting is to win. I can't beat my senior brother in sword fighting, not because I'm too weak, but because he's too abnormal. Now it seems that with my strength, it's more than enough to deal with these illusory monsters in the secret realm of the palace. Ha 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 ha, the breath of confidence and happiness almost overflowed from her excited eyebrows. Qiu Changtian watched from behind and became more and more hesitant. If I kill the last Emperor Shishin in front of her later, junior sister Zhu won't be so angry that she will go crazy immediately. Alas, when junior sister is happiest, I slap her from the peep to the bottom with a slab. I really can't do such a wicked thing. Don't worry, she won't go crazy. Luo Yan suddenly said, in fact, we did this and taught her a valuable lesson. That is, you must never take it lightly and relax your vigilance until the last moment. Qiu Changtian. Oh, what you said is not unreasonable. And according to what Luo Yan said, such a thing should have happened in his past. It has become an established history. How can I change history easily? There is no other way, so I can only do it. I believe that Sister Zhu will understand my brother's difficulties. The two continued to follow all the way. The further they advanced, the more celestial beings blocked the road. The lightning released by the Vata in their hands became more and more powerful, causing the casualties of the Asuras to begin to rise. Zhu Yinlian looked solemn, concentrating on urging the Yujie sword to quickly kill the approaching enemies. Relying on her extraordinary performance, she actually blocked a large number of celestial beings, making the Asuras on the ground more and more courageous, and continued to advance slowly against the firepower of the celestial beings. Now, Luo Yan suddenly shouted in a low voice, wrapped the sword light around himself and Qiu Changtian, and immediately rushed forward from his hiding place. His sword light became faster and faster, and almost formed a straight line at the back. Suddenly, it passed through the celestial beings who had no time to react, and shot straight to their back. Zhu Yinlian caught that flash of light, and her expression suddenly became stern. What a fast sword light! Even if she tried her best, it would be impossible for the flying sword to shoot at such a speed. The person flying the sword must be above the marrow cleansing stage, and he must have used some advanced sword flying essence. Wait! Why did he go deep behind the enemy? Could it be? A thought suddenly popped up in her mind, and Zhu Yinlian was so shocked that she hurriedly urged the sword to try to quickly clear out the celestial beings who were blocking her way. However, every time she wiped out a wave of celestial beings, another wave of celestial beings would come to fill the position again, making Zhu Yinlian gnashing her teeth in anger. The resentment on her face was so strong that it almost turned into substance. That person took advantage of me intercepting the celestial beings and suddenly appeared and rushed into the enemy's rear on a sword. He must be going to kill the target of this level, Emperor Shishin. Just when Zhu Yinlian was desperately charging but still couldn't break through the celestial beings, and was so angry that he almost bit his lips, Luo Yan had already used the Shushang method of the unity of man and sword, and rushed to the distant Emperor Shishin with Qiu Changtian. The Emperor Shishin that appeared in the secret realm of the palace was a female god king with a height of nearly 100 meters. She was dressed elegantly, with a dignified and elegant figure, wearing a phoenix crown on her head, and her hands were clasped together. Except for the vesta hanging on her waist, her whole body was dressed like a court concubine. However, the gods outside the sky have no gender. Whether male or female, they are just the image they want to show. Thunder and fire text, Jake Pivot Divine Thunder. Luo Yan pinched the sword formula with his right hand, reminded Qiu Changtian loudly, and quickly formed a palm with his left hand to chant the mantra. The two shouted break together, and two blue lightnings hit the head of the god king accurately one after the other. Thunder exploded, and the world roared. Luo Yan once again used all his strength to drive the Toho sword, and the pink sword light suddenly stretched out, like lightning, with a majestic and powerful force, penetrating into it. Body and sword become one. The head of the God King finally exploded, and the huge body slowly fell to the ground. In the distance behind that, two people, Zhu Yinlian, who had hurriedly broken through the siege, was rushing over here. After all, it is a trial target of the foundation building stage, and it won't be too difficult to deal with. Luo Yan finally said faintly, "In this way, the four King Shuru Pass will be broken." As soon as the voice fell, the two disappeared. Tens of seconds later, Zhu Yinlian drove the sword light to the scene, only to see that the body of the God King had disappeared, leaving only a huge pit on the ground. She clenched her pink fist silently in anger and unwillingness, and even her nails sank into the flesh. After a long while, she swung it hard in the air to vent her anger. Qiu Cheng's iron was teleported again, and he felt that the ups and downs reversed, the sun and the moon were upside down, and finally he came to a new world. The sky was still red, but not as blood red as the four King Shuru Emperor, but closer to the beautiful sunset glow. The ground was grey soil mixed with gravel, and there were a lot of yellow-leafed ginkgo trees planted around. The two seemed to be in a ginkgo forest, next to a stream in that forest. Although the fallen leaves were flying like cotton and the river was as thick as milk, which was quite elegant and interesting in autumn, Qiu Cheng's iron still did not dare to take it lightly, and just looked at Luo Yan intently. "This is the sixth devil's land," Luo Yan said indifferently. "It tests your ability to resist temptation. You have a clear mind of Taoism, so you don't have to worry about the attacks of inner demons. But I am now playing the role of Luo Yan, and it is not easy to fight against the many subsequent illusions." After that, he sat on the ground with fallen leaves and said, "You go forward along the river alone. You and I are originally one person. As long as you pass this level, I will be teleported with you." Qiu Cheng's iron nodded, and walked along the stream and river towards the depths of the golden forest. Chapter 56. A Jin defeated the demon, chief changed into Baiyu. Qiu Cheng's iron walked cautiously along the stream. The ground was full of piled up fallen leaves, which were extremely soft to step on. Qiu Cheng's iron didn't like this environment very much, because if there was a trap hidden under the fallen leaves somewhere, he had no way to judge and check it. However, since Luo Yan said that this level tests the ability to resist temptation, let's assume that there shouldn't be such a strange design as trap. After walking a few dozen steps, the river merged into a lake. In the center of the lake, there seemed to be a vague and graceful figure washing her body in the lake. A misty and pleasant singing voice came over. "There are trees on the mountain and branches on the trees. I love you but you don't know." Qiu Cheng's iron looked around and saw a woman's neatly taken off dress on a big rock by the lake. "Well, the elements are all there. Do you think I would use a branch to lift up the dress and tease the bathing woman? Unfortunately, as a gentleman, I, Qiu Cheng's iron, just like to say no to those who think they're right." Qiu Cheng's iron turned around without hesitation, and before he took a few steps, he saw a beautiful woman coming out from behind that tree. The dress she was wearing was exactly the same as the one placed on the big rock by the lake. Looking at the lake, as expected, both the figure and the singing had disappeared. Why is the young master so unromantic? The beautiful woman was about to cry, and she was about to move closer. Qiu Cheng's iron quickly stepped back a few steps, as if the other party was a poisonous snake or a beast, and said solemnly, "Miss, please respect yourself." "Young master," the beautiful woman said coquettishly. The next second, the jade smoke sword pierced her abdomen. With his clear mind, Qiu Cheng's iron was keenly aware that some kind of illusion was continuously attacking his mind from the moment he approached the lake. Whether it was the figure in the lake, the singing, or even the clothes on the stone that kept emitting the idea of "come and steal me," they were all part of the illusion attack. Of course, he couldn't explain to the other party, "I'm sorry, I'm actually immune to illusion magic," but was just cautiously on guard. As a result, the other party saw that he was not fooled, so he stopped pretending and tried to attack physically, forcing Qiu Cheng's iron to launch a counterattack. The beauty was pierced by the jade smoke sword and immediately turned into a dream bubble and shattered. Qiu Cheng's iron continued to move along the lake lizard, and heard the magic sounds around him gradually rising, soft and murmured, lingering and entangled, enough to make a person's fists hard. But there were only sounds, no human figures, so he couldn't deal with the other party as quickly and neatly as he did just now, and could only listen. Fortunately, now that the synchronization value of the invincible character setting is high enough, Qiu Cheng's iron will fully operate the so hard to be immune to the seductive effects of these magic sounds and turn a deaf ear to them. Seeing that he was completely unmoved, the magic sounds became more and more wanton and provocative, almost unbearable to the ears. Gradually, the voices of Zhu Yinlian, Zisu and Chilili appeared, and all kinds of ambiguous good senior brother and dear junior brother appeared one after another. Qiu Changtai sneered in his heart. That's it. If I wanted to conquer them, I would have taken down the real people long ago. He was still completely unmoved. The surrounding magic sounds were silent for a moment, and then they further simulated the sounds of Kunlun Mirror and Kingping Sword, and began to seduce Qiu Changtai implicitly. Qiu Changtai frowned, thinking that the mirror spoke in such a delicate tone. He felt very awkward. In his sea of consciousness, Kunlun Mirror was completely furious. As a mirror in the palace of Queen Mother of the West, on the Ochai stage, when has this humiliation ever been suffered? Mirror flowers and water moons, shining in the void. Such vulgar illusions, break them for me. Suddenly, as if there was a thunderous sound, the countless charming illusions that were just around just screamed and disappeared immediately. Qiu Changtai, a jinn, what did you do? He asked in surprise, and secretly became alert in his heart. This broken mirror really still has a trick up its sleeve. It's just the same as the Kingping Sword, it has to be squeezed harder to produce oil. Nothing. Kunlun Mirror said reservedly, the illusion here is very noisy, I just helped you get through it earlier. Oh, really? Qiu Changtai sneered, then next time you encounter a crisis, please help me, a jinn. Of course. Kunlun Mirror said insincerely, you helped me find the Nuwei stone to mend the sky, and I used the mirror flowers and water moons to help you get the pillar's talent. We should have a relationship of mutual help. Of course. Qiu Changtai said with a chuckle. Before he finished speaking, the sky spun. The sixth demon gate had been breached, and Qiu Changtai was teleported to the next level by the palace restriction. Here, however, the sky was blue and the ground was yellow. The sky was clear and blue, and the sky was full of clouds. In the distance, there were layers of mountains, and the surrounding trees were lush and green. There was a stream running through it, and the sound of water was rippling. Birds were singing and insects were chirping, one after another. Fish jumped up and splashed water. Qiu Changtai. He looked down at his reflection in the stream, and found that he had turned into a blue cloud crane with white hair and a long neck, high feet and black top. A jinn. Qiu Changtai hurriedly called out in his heart, help me to solve the illusion. This is not an illusion, it's a formation. Kunlun Jin whispered. Formation? Qiu Changtai asked suspiciously, why haven't I seen such a formation? He subconsciously combed his feathers with his beak, and then flapped his wings instinctively and flew into the air. Circling the wood at low altitude, soaring and circling for several times, Qiu Changtai confirmed that this area was just an ordinary mountain basin, with trees and water in it, but it was ordinary. There was no trace of any formation. Suddenly, he landed on an open space, and saw a three-eyed raccoon running out of the forest. The raccoon had golden fur and soft skin, long whiskers and a pointed mouth, but it could stand upright on its two hind legs, and was obviously transformed from a human body. Here's Luoyan. Kunlun Mirror reminded, the future Kunlun Mirror is on him. Cry. Cry. Qiu Changtai cried. Gu. Gu. Luoyan responded. Although the two were of different species and could not communicate directly, fortunately the two Kunlun Mirrors were in tune with their minds and could transmit information to each other, so they translated for them. He said. Kunlun Mirror said to Qiu Changtai, this place simulates the Donghuan demon realm, called the three types of animals land. The so-called three types of animals are fish, birds, and beasts. The three types of animals land tests the ability of Tao follows nature. To do this, we need to go to the place with the most spiritual energy nearby, and then simulate the monsters to eat wind and drink dew, absorbing the essence of the sun and the moon. Qiu Changtai was speechless after hearing this. If the previous three levels still have obvious traces of guiding the trialists, then these three types of beastly lands can be said to be the beginning of hell. After the trialists come in, they become beasts. There is no one to communicate with around them, and there are no level guides. If there is no strategy, who would think of going to the place with the most abundant spiritual energy? Hey, wait, the three-eyed raccoon made a few more cues, so the Kunlun Mirror translated and said, yes, you thought of it. For ordinary people to pass the Qi refining stage, they need at least 20 to 30 years of hard work, drawing Qi into the body every day and refining it. And the three types of beastly lands here are the key to the Lycong secret realm to help you skip the Qi refining stage. Chapter 57. Although the Kisi is full, it can't stop the ice prison. A golden raccoon was shuttling through the forest, running quickly on all fours. A large snow-white bird was gliding behind, closely following the raccoon's figure. Kyo Chang-time couldn't help but sigh again. How can I find a place with the most abundant spiritual energy among these three types of animal lands? I have no clue at all, okay? I can only rely on my future self to cheat in order to pass the level smoothly. I just don't know how junior sisters Yu and Mishi will find clues to break through the level when they enter here. About a quarter of an hour later, Kyo Chang-time followed Luoyan and found the mountain along the stream. The stream was originally a spring in the mountain, flowing out of a dark cave. Luoyan's raccoon went in first, tearing the vines blocking the way with his claws, and his small body squeezed into the narrow cave in 2 or 3 moves. Kyo Chang-time followed in and noticed that the surrounding humidity was getting heavier, wetting his feathers and making him very uncomfortable. The two walked forward for dozens of steps in the cave, and saw that there was actually a cave deep in the cave. There was a hole on the top, and the skylight fell. Several vines hung down along the top hole, like a curtain. In the light column, there was a natural stone platform. Countless exotic flowers and plants bloomed around the stone platform, like steps. Gugyu. Luoyan's raccoon beast cried, and Kunlun Mirror translated it and said, "Go. You and I are originally one person, and only one person here can receive the initiation of the sun and moon essence. I have experienced it once in the past and successfully promoted to the marrow washing stage. Now, it's your turn." Kyo Chang-time was silent for a moment after hearing this, then flapped his wings and landed in the center of the stone platform. Then what? There was no next. Kyo Chang-time cast an inquiring look at Luoyan, but he saw that the golden raccoon beast had found a dry place, lay down comfortably, and curled up. Since the future self did not say anything, it means that at least there is nothing wrong with him standing stupidly on the stone platform now. Thinking of this, Kyo Chang-time subconsciously used his long beak to comb his feathers again. It was not because of bird instinct, but because it was too uncomfortable to have his feathers wet and tangled. After standing in the light column for a long time, Kyo Chang-time felt a little sleepy. So he stood on one foot and closed his eyes to rest. In his hazy consciousness, he suddenly heard a Buddhist chant, holy and ethereal, ethereal, slowly descending from the sky. Great is the 7 treasures palace, where lotus flowers naturally grow. The bright night light shines, and the divine home is in a trance. Looking up at the Chuanxin terrace, the cloud tower is majestic. The stream shines in the dark sky, and the soldiers are recruited to destroy all demons. When its sanction and blessing are not fixed, and the free human body is close, Kyo Chang-time immediately shed his feathers, turned into a human form, and sat in a meditation posture, continuing to absorb the sun's essence on the stone platform. I don't know how long it took, but the outside had turned from day to night, and the sun's essence in the skylight also turned into moonlight. Kyo Chang-time was still sitting on the stone platform, slowly absorbing the moonlight. After a while, the chanting stopped. Kyo Chang-time opened his eyes and found that his Kisi was already full, and his cultivation had almost skyrocketed. Looking inward for a moment, he confirmed that he had skipped at least 20 to 30 years of Ki refining stage and successfully entered the marrow cleansing stage. Not bad. Luoyan walked out of the shadow of the cave and said indifferently, in this way, the 3 types of beasts have also been broken. After entering the marrow cleansing stage, the 9 heavens Pure Land realm entry will have an additional derivative Taoist method called Shao Fu Shangyang Sword Ki. This is a pure offensive Taoist method. Within 100 steps, the sword energy is crisscrossed, piercing gold and splitting stones, and can be sent and received at will, without being stained by evil, and is suitable for use with flying swords. In the next level, you can get started and act first. It was the familiar spinning of the sky and the shifting of the world. When Kyo Chang-time came to his senses, he found that he and Luoyan had been teleported to the 5th level by the ban. Here, however, the sky and the earth were red, the sky was like blood, the ground was like a river of magma, sparks were dancing in the air, it was so hot that it was like purgatory. This is the first line of Hellfire Pass. Luoyan frowned and said, the reason is that this pass is to test your ability to deal with strong enemies, so, there will be a strong enemy that we can't defeat. Kyo Chang-time thought to himself. Then, a figure slowly emerged in front of him. The man was wearing a green Taoist robe, with a tall figure, a sword case on his back, grey hair, handsome and cold features, just like a middle-aged handsome man. 7 killings Master Sujian, Luoyan said slowly, run. The two turned around and flew away on their swords, and when Su Jian completely emerged, he looked up in the direction of their escape, his eyes full of coldness. The two of them fled madly to the distance. Qiu Cheng's Haiyan was basically running with Luo Yan. They quickly passed through the smoky volcano and the sea of magma. In front of them was the other side, a piece of iron-blue mountain that stood like a sword and axe. Suddenly, a frosty white sword light came from a distance and blocked the two of them in an instant. Luo Yan was ready to control the magic weapon. The heaven-turning seal turned half a circle in the air and then smashed towards Su Jian's head. Su Jian pinched the sword formula with his right hand, and the cold sword directly met the heaven-turning seal. The sword light was like a full moon. With a loud bang, the cold sword was smashed halfway. Qiu Cheng's Haiyan. Is the power of this heaven-turning seal too outrageous? Well, after all, it is a magic weapon known for its powerful flying bricks. It can only compete with Su Jian's cold sword when it is used to the extreme on the hard and rough. Just thinking about this, he was suddenly involved by Luo Yan's sword light and fled to the mountains in front again. Su Jian's cold and ruthless voice chanted from behind. The sky is clear and the night is cold. The next moment, the whole world was engulfed in endless wind and snow. It was freezing cold. Even though Qiu Cheng's Haiyan had a clear mind, his mind was blank for a moment when he witnessed such a terrifying power of heaven and earth for the first time. When he came to his senses, he was already wrapped up by Luo Yan's sword light, and he didn't know how far he had rushed out. He turned his head suddenly and saw that in the endless sea of red sky and fire, the place where he had just fought with Su Jian had suddenly inserted into a nearly 100-mile-long, cold ice hell. Inside, the wind was rolling, frost and snow were flying, and the rocks were jagged, piercing the sky. The outer shell was layers of obsidian, which blocked all the magma outside. The shocking and magnificent scene only flashed in Qiu Cheng's Haiyan's eyes for a moment, and was soon covered by the iron-blue mountains. Luo Yan led him into the Iron Thorn mountain range, and used the heaven-flipping seal to smash a deep cave directly on the mountain wall, and then quickly hid in it. Qiu Cheng's Haiyan only realized that Luo Yan's body was already blue and purple, and many parts were torn by Su Jian's sword energy, leaving narrow and terrible wounds. He silently cast a universal clear sound small light spell on Luo Yan, and then saw Luo Yan expressionlessly taking out a bottle of pills from his arms. Kao by Jing Dan, the best for removing cold air. Without even looking at it, he put the pill bottle into his mouth and poured it out. Without drinking water, all the pills were swallowed raw, and then he slowly breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Don't be stingy with money, buy the best." Qiu Cheng's Haiyan nodded solemnly. "Seeing your miserable state, how could I buy cheap ones? After reloading the game, I will prepare 10 bottles on my body." After taking the cup of Jing pill, the purple color on Luo Yan's body slowly faded, and his wounds healed under the effect of the universal clear sound light technique. Then he reached into his bosom and took out a broken mirror. The Tongming mirror that third senior sister gave you last time can resist a fatal external attack. Don't forget to carry it with you. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 58. Escaping from the Jedi and entering the Shire field. The two held their breath in the cave, secretly on guard. Qiu Cheng's Haiyan looked solemn, his pupils slightly contracted. The terrifying spell that shook the sky before was still deeply engraved in his memory. The first attack was blocked by Luo Yan with the Tongming mirror. What about the second time? If Su Jian's illusion launches a second attack, we don't have a second Tongming mirror. Just looking at Luo Yan's expressionless face, I know that my future self should be able to get through this level. In other words, Luo Yan's existence proves that he did not die in this line of fire prison. Qiu Cheng's Haiyan's mind turned rapidly, and suddenly he heard a thunderous explosion outside. Here it comes. Needless to say, the two immediately rushed out of the cave on their swords, and saw Su Jian standing in the sky with a cold expression, pinching the sword formula and looking down, chanting the spell. The deep ice is 3 feet, and the snow covers thousands of miles. The biting cold wind whistled again, turning the area thousands of miles into a low-temperature hell. The two men were about to leave with swords flashing, but they saw that the flying swords were not functioning properly, as if they were frozen by ice and snow. Obviously, after finding that the first attack failed to work, Su Jian gave up the original strategy of killing quickly, and instead trapped the two men first and then killed them. Realizing that the desperate situation had arrived, Qiu Changtian was much calmer than before. He just kept urging that flying sword while looking at Luoyan again. How to break it? Death is come in, where is the chance of survival? Luoyan did not speak, but just looked up indifferently. Su Jian stood in the sky, looking at the two men with no warmth in his eyes, and chanted the spell again. The sword comes out of white scales, and the air is like a cold dragon. With this spell, the cold sword turned into thousands, and the vast amount of sword energy turned into a huge cold dragon shape, carrying the might that seemed to destroy the world, and whistled straight down at the two men. Qiu Changtian quickly recited De Yu, fingertips Chong Yun, and used the sword energy of Xiao Fu Shangyang with all his strength, and shot rapidly at the huge cold dragon in the sky. Countless Shangyang sword ki pierced into the dragon, and the cold sword ki that was hit instantly dissipated. However, for the vast amount of sword ki in the cold dragon, it was just a drop in the bucket. In a few breaths, the cold dragon composed of a large amount of sword ki pounced down and completely swallowed up Luoyan, who was standing still, and Qiu Changtian, who was still struggling in vain. Qiu Changtian suddenly opened his eyes. He realized that he was in a city. There was a blue stone ground under his feet, and dark clouds were over his head. It seemed that it was about to rain, and passers-by were also in a hurry. I've said before that the fire prison pass tests your ability to deal with strong enemies. Luoyan stood nearby, looking at a store selling bamboo hats, and said indifferently, whether to stay and fight, or to escape, it is just one of the possible options. But when you are really facing the line between life and death, when all hope for the future is completely cut off, whether you can still persist in struggling to survive, rather than giving up and dying, is the key to breaking this level. At this point, he sighed softly, and said earnestly, the road is narrow, others block me, and I block others. Even at the last moment, how can we easily talk about success or failure, life or death? Qiu Changtian was silent for a long time, and nodded. Let's not talk about that. Luoyan smiled and said, this is the land of two worlds. The two worlds of the past and the future. You and I are not from this world, and there is no past to speak of, so the illusion here reflects the future. He paid the stall owner, then picked up a bamboo hat and put it on his head. Or it can be said that it is a possibility of the future that you were afraid of. Let's not talk about it. When it comes to illusions, you can decipher it yourself. It will also be good for you. After saying that, he disappeared leisurely around the corner. Qiu Changtian looked at him suspiciously, feeling that his future self seemed to be looking forward to something. Well, could it be that I would make a fool of myself in this illusion? What a joke, I have a clear mind of Taoism. How could I be confused by a mere illusion? But just in case, it's better to be careful, Jing. He called in a low voice, help me break this illusion. Didn't I say it? Jing said calmly, it will be good for you to break it yourself. I smell the smell of conspiracy. Qiu Changtian said coldly, Jing, have you seen through this illusion and are you hiding something from me? Jing stopped talking. This broken mirror started to play dead again, and Qiu Changtian could only move forward along the street for the time being, while cautiously scanning the surroundings. It seemed to be a busy time, with people coming and going around. However, all the pedestrians had no faces, and their bodies were grey and hazy, which was quite strange. He walked forward for a while, and suddenly saw a figure squeezed through the crowd and waved towards this side. Stone glaze. No, it's an illusion. With his clear mind, Qiu Changtian quickly realized that the stone glaze opposite was not a physical entity, but an illusion. Very good, I want to see what this illusion is trying to do. As he was thinking, Shili smiled and came up to hug his arm, saying crisply, it's noon now, why are you still wandering outside, aren't you hungry? The family feast is ready, waiting for you to go back and eat. Qiu Changtian sneered in his heart. Since this worldly pass wants me to play the husband of Mishi, I will follow its meaning and play it to see what happens next. Thinking of this, he smiled and said to Shilili gently, okay, I'm hungry, so let's go back to the mansion with you. Following Shilili back to the mansion and into the dining room, as she said, all kinds of dishes were already served on the round table. Zhu Yingyan sat on the right and Zisu sat on the left. When they saw him come in, they stood up and bowed, calling him master. Ah, what does this mean? Why does it feel like a concubine in the Republic of China? Qiu Changtian was confused and asked everyone to sit down. One man and 3 women sat down around the round table from east to west and north to south. He ate a few slices of meat, and Shilili smiled and put a chicken leg into his bowl. Husband, eat more, the meat is so tender. Qiu Chang's took a bite and felt that the stew was very mellow, salty and delicious. Seeing that Shilali's face was full of joyful expressions of ask me quickly, he opened his mouth and asked, "This tastes very delicious. Is it made by the chef at home?" "It's me." Shilali raised her hand and shouted. Her expression was extremely playful and cute. "I learned the secret recipe from the chef at Jinxai Banglu. I'll tell you a secret, husband. This is to take the best chicken thighs, add star anise, cinnamon, pepper, orange sauce and other ingredients, and marinate for 3 days and 3 nights. If you don't have understanding and patience, it will be very difficult to learn." Qiu Chang's smiled slightly and was about to praise her a few words, but he heard Zhu Yingyan snorted and said coldly, "As a married woman, how can you easily show up and go to a noisy place like a restaurant to learn skills?" After that, she picked up a chopstick of asparagus and put it in Qiu Chang's bowl, saying, "Husband, eat the vegetables." Chapter 59. Pass the 6 trials and leave the palace to receive rewards. Shilali put down her chopsticks, slammed the table, and said angrily, "At least I have such thoughts. I am willing to contribute my little bit of strength to satisfy my husband's appetite. Of course I can't compare with some concubines who recite poems and compose essays, play the piano and hum songs all day long. They think they are elegant and refined, but they don't know that they are useless at home. It's ridiculous." Zhu Yingyan's eyes twitched, and he sneered. "Who said they are useless? At least I have a son to carry on the family line and inherit the ancestral incense. Unlike some women, who can't even give birth after 3 years of marriage. Who do you think can't give birth?" Shilali screamed and was about to overturn the table. The tabletop did not move at all. It was Nzisu opposite who supported the tabletop with one hand to prevent her from lifting it. She said softly, "Sisters and sisters, the master is still here. Don't hurt the harmony in front of the head of the family and embarrass the master." Shilali on this side immediately burst into tears, hugged Qiu Chang's right arm, and cried, "Husband, look at her, she is so jealous and always bullies me. How can she be a proper first wife?" Zhu Yingyan on the other side also immediately had tears in the corners of her eyes. She bit her lower lip slightly and said in a sob, "I, Zhu, have been married for 7 years. I believe that I have lived up to my virtues as a woman. I respect my parents-in-law, teach my children, and manage the household diligently. I didn't expect that someone would dare to bully me after 3 years of marriage. Since then, there has been unrest in the house." They cried and complained to themselves, and Nzisu interrupted from time to time. Her tone was full of ulcers. The 3 women chirped and quarreled, which made his ears buzz and his eyes dizzy. He couldn't help but slam the table and roared, "Shut up." The 3 women immediately fell silent, but their faces were tearful, and they looked at him with tears in their eyes. "What the hell is this level?" Qiu Chang's pushed the table and stood up. His heart was shocked and surprised. "What kind of ghost illusion is this? Is it a quarrel in the harem? Is it to test my ability to deal with the house fight? What a joke. What does this have to do with cultivation? I saw a fucking ghost. Don't be nervous, don't be nervous, these women are fake, calm down, these are all illusions," forcing the Taoist heart to open up. Qiu Chang's quickly calmed down again. "Ah, I know. This illusion must have been created on purpose, creating this kind of tangled harem relationship. If you were obsessed with trying to resolve it, you will be in trouble. The correct approach should be to cut the Gordian knot. As the saying goes, the sword of wisdom cuts the thread of love, and this will definitely pass the test." Thinking of this, he suddenly raised the jade mist sword and slashed at the 3 wives. As a result, Zhu Yingyan raised the Yujie sword, Shilali raised the Fanshan seal, and Nzisu drew out the frost sword, and they blocked it all. "My husband, what's wrong with you? Are you really going to kill me for this woman? My husband, how can you be so cruel? You want to kill me despite our years of friendship, but you want to live with this woman? My lord, you actually saw through my plan. I was also forced to do this. You have been looking for too many women in recent years, so I can only use such a despicable means to win you back." The wives choked up and cried, but their men used all kinds of magical powers to fight with Qiu Chang's iron. In an instant, the mansion was reduced to ruins. In the sky, Zhu Yingyan had transformed into a phoenix and rained down fire from the sky. On the ground, Shilali and other treasures were shining and colorful. In the distance, Nzisu came from the west with a sword, and the sword energy was running wild. Being attacked by them like this, Qiu Chang's really couldn't resist and had to fight and retreat. The three of them continued to pursue him relentlessly, fighting with Qiu Chang's time until the sky was dark and the sun and moon were dim, until his true energy was exhausted and his spirit was weakened, and he realized that he was already in a square. Luo Yan stood by and looked at him meaningfully. The two worlds of the mortal world have been opened. What do you think? Fuck you. Why are you scolding yourself? Then why do you want to hurt yourself? Because I am your future self. I have already experienced the sure field just now. Luo Yan said leisurely, I would take this opportunity to let you experience it, and I would feel really bad. Qiu Chang's Hyan. I have a swear word, but I don't know if I should say it or not. After thinking about it carefully, I decided not to say it, so as not to be insulted by my past self when I play Luo Yan later. Okay. Luo Yan finally said, the palace is in front, you can push the door and go in to receive the reward. What about you? Qiu Chang's Hyan asked suspiciously. Me? Luo Yan smiled slightly and said mysteriously, I will stay here to help you solve the upcoming disaster. Disaster? Qiu Chang's Hyan was a little puzzled, and only heard Luo Yan waving his hand to urge him. Go quickly. After receiving the reward and being teleported away, find a place to read the game file Luo Yan. As for what this disaster is, you will know when you become Luo Yan. Okay. Qiu Chang's Hyan sighed and walked towards the palace in front. By the way, Luo Yan suddenly called him. What's wrong? Qiu Chang's Hyan turned his head and asked. Remember when choosing rewards? Luo Yan said seriously, 2 birds in the bush are worth a bird in the hand. I know. Qiu Chang's Hyan pondered for a moment and nodded. The palace is a majestic palace, which looks a bit like the Forbidden City in his previous life. Qiu Chang's Hyan stepped onto the 9 white jade steps and came to the Nanmu door. After taking a deep breath, he pushed the door and went in. Inside, there was nothing in the huge palace. There was only an incense table, a cushion, and a scroll on the wall with a beautiful fairy on it. I thought the secret was on the cushion. Qiu Chang's Hyan walked forward, knelt on the cushion, and bowed to the scroll. Suddenly, a voice sounded in the palace, which seemed to be a young female voice. The words were ethereal and the whole room was filled with fragrance. Qiu Chang's Hyan, a disciple of Kunlun from the branch of the sect. You have passed the 6 levels of the trial and are the first to pass it this time. You have excellent results. After a while, the female voice continued. I have noticed that what you're practicing is the immortal family's 9 heavens pure and subtle Do mantra. Given time, you will become a golden immortal. This time, I will not give you the key refining technique. There are 3 kinds. Flying sword, magic weapon, and Taoist method. You can choose one of your own. 3 objects fell from the sky. Whenever he looked at anything, the fairy's voice explained to him. The flying sword is the yin-yang microdust sword, a Taoist magic sword. Yin and yang are harmonious, and the universe is contained within. Those who hold this sword can pass through the yin-yang microdust formation and ignore any Kim and Unjia. It contains 3 forbidden methods, which can be known by touching it. The magic weapon is the Ishu Gaodu 2, a Taoist magic weapon. It records the great derivation numbers of heaven and earth, the 4 symbols and 8 trigrams of the river map, and the dragon map and turtle book theory. It can be used to activate the great derivation formation of heaven and earth, the 4 symbols and 8 trigrams of the river map, and the dragon map and turtle book formation. The Taoist method is the middle volume of the 5 thunders orthodox method, which contains the 3 thunder methods of Xiandu thunder, Beiji thunder, and Qi thunder, with supreme power. Qiu Chang's Hyan was silent for a moment. Damn, what should I do if I want it all? First of all, let's talk about the yin-yang microdust sword. This thing has been mentioned many times in ancient books. It is a famous ancient fairy sword at the same level as the Qi Fengguang sword, which is the so-called 11th level fairy sword. If we talk about the value, the yin-yang microdust sword can be ranked first among the 3 treasures. However, for Qiu Chang's Hyan, the biggest problem with this immortal sword is that its rank is too high. Without external help, he can't refine it at all. So he called Kunlun Mirror in his heart and asked with a smile, Ah Mirror, do you think this sword is a good match for Kingping? Can you help me refine it and I will take it to accompany Kingping? Don't choose the yin-yang microdust sword. Kunlun Mirror said slowly, although it has the same name and number, it is actually a 10th level imitation, with only a part of the power of the yin-yang microdust sword. Qiu Chang's Hyan said, and suddenly realized it. No wonder it is obviously the yin-yang microdust sword, but it can't control the yin-yang microdust formation, but can only help the sword master pass. It turns out to be just a replica. The so-called imitation, also known as subproduct, refers to the fact that when the refining technology reaches a high level, it can use part of the aura of the 11th level genuine magic weapon to forge a 10th level magic weapon with part of the power of the genuine one. In the current world of cultivation, the art of replicating immortal swords has been lost, and it can only be recast on the basis of a broken sword. Few people have mastered the art of replicating magic weapons. If Luo Yang knows correctly, it should be only the third sister Liang Druo, with the help of Elder Shi Din, who can replicate the 11th level magic weapon of the spiritual treasure level, and it must be the simple and crude type, such as the Fanchen seal and the god-beating whip of pure physical attack. If it is the real Liang Qi microdust sword, he really finds it difficult to give it up. Since it is just a replica, its value immediately drops a lot. So Qiu Changtime looked at the next magic weapon, the issue Gaodu 2. Friendly recommendation of the new book by Honey Chicken. Shut up, senior sister. A daily dog food article in college between the failed online writer and the illustrator of the seductive picture. Chapter 60. Get 4 of the 10 thunders and come out to see the master. Yishu Hook Exchange Diagram, a rare Taoist array magic weapon. According to what the fairy sound said before, this magic weapon can be used to activate the Heaven and Earth Great Evolution Array, the River Map 4 Elephants 8 Trigrams Array, and the Dragon Map Turtle Book Array. On the one hand, it can be used to defeat the enemy, and on the other hand, it is naturally of infinite help to Luo Yan's study of array. However, the real question is, why did Qiu Changtime change things for Luo Yan? After helping Luo Yan change things, when he went out, Ziwei headmaster asked what he had changed. How should Qiu Changtime explain? Thinking of this, he skipped the issue hook exchange diagram and looked at the last volume of the 5 Thunders Orthodox Method. It should be made clear here that the 5 Thunders of the 5 Thunders Orthodox Method refer to the 5 forms of thunder methods: Heavenly Thunder, Divine Thunder, Water Thunder, Dragon Thunder and Community Thunder, each with different effects. Heavenly Thunder brings disaster, Divine Thunder subdues demons, Water Thunder destroys the spirits of rivers, lakes and seas, Dragon Thunder is responsible for moving clouds and rain, and Community Thunder is used to announce heroes. For example, when Guanyu was defeated and captured by Lumen King Malikan, there was a thunder in the sky when he was beheaded. This was the Shilei. Lumeng was frightened by the Shilei and fell ill after returning to Jiangdong. He died soon after. In short, the 5 thunders in the 5 Thunders Orthodox Method are divided purely according to their forms. If divided according to the nature of the thunder method, there are a total of 10 thunders in the entire thunder method system so far. As mentioned above, each of these 10 thunders has 5 forms. The Yushu thunder controlled by Qiu Changtime is also that first thunder among the 10 thunders. It is the thunder of the command of the heaven, which has great lethality to ghosts and spirits. The Shengxiao thunder, which was lost in Yangzhou, is the thunder of extinction of life. It has the ability to exterminate the body, so it has a large damage bonus to demons with strong bodies. The 3 types of thunder methods recorded in this book are Xiandu Thunder, which is the thunder of the Jade Emperor's mighty chapter, which is specifically used to restrain the immortals who take the path of incense. Beiji Thunder, which is the thunder of the North Pole Chuan Ming, which is specifically used to kill all kinds of dragons and their descendants. Che Thunder, which is the thunder that resounds through the 3 realms. Although it has no special attack targets, its characteristic is that its bombing range is extremely large and can be used to blow up mountains and fill the sea. These 3 thunder methods can be practiced immediately after Qiu Changtime gets them. Moreover, according to the Shengxiao Yushu Zankan Woilai Daifa, if you master the first 9 thunder methods in the 10 thunders, you can practice the last thunder Tiju Thunder. The so-called Tiju Thunder is the thunder that opened up the world and separated the clear and turbid, with almost supreme terrifying power. Thinking about this, combined with Luo Yan's previous reminder, Qiu Changtime finally made a decision. Choose the middle volume of the 5 thunders. I want to reach the end on the road of the Thunder King. When he chose the Taoist book, it immediately turned into countless points of light, penetrated into his mind, and turned into a memory of the Taoist method. Qiu Changtime recalled it for a moment, and it immediately appeared before his eyes, word for word, without any error. The reward had been selected, and the other 2 items disappeared. Only the female voice was heard saying, "You have received the reward. The trial of the palace is over. You can leave quickly." In the spinning of the sky of the earth, Qiu Changtime was teleported out of the palace and returned to the glorious palace gate of the outside world. Flying back to the side of the ship along the rainbow light, Qiu Changtime saw the head of Ziwei and the elder of Shiding standing side by side at the bow of the ship, looking over. A good teacher produces a good student. The ancients were not deceiving me. Elder Sheeding stroked his beard and smiled. My nephew Kia won the first place in this Lee Palace trial. You can be proud of yourself when you return to Cumlin. Humph. The head of the sect smiled faintly, but said, if you can't get the first place with a clear mind, what kind of peerless talent can you talk about? Kyo Chang-Tien landed on the deck with his sword, greeted his master and Elder Sheeding, and then told them everything he had gained. The head of the sect frowned and said, you made the right choice. The Lian Qi microdust sword cannot be a genuine product. Although it has a loud name, it is of little use to you. The issue Gaudo diagram requires a deep attainment in formation to use it freely, and it doesn't suit you very well. Only the Five Thunders orthodox method. At this point, he suddenly smiled again and said, forget it, it must be that you used the Jade Pivot Thunder in the secret realm. The Lee Palace noticed that you had thunder magic, so they chose this reward. Kyo Chang-Tien said respectfully. 9 heavens respond to the origin, thunder is everywhere. Elder Sheeding also said with a smile, this method has supreme power in the later stage. As long as you practice it and study it deeply, it is also a bright road. Chang-Tien, you should go and rest first. The sect master said gently. Kyo Chang-Tien nodded and said goodbye. After he left, the two people's faces became solemn again. Elder Sheeding said doubtfully. According to the usual rules, my nephew, as the first in Lee Palace, must have a purifying Yuan Qi pill as a reward to the 3. Why is there no pill this time? The 3 rewards, magic swords, magic weapons, and Taoist magic, are all methods of conquest, Taoist cheating. Head of the sect pondered for a moment and said in a low voice, I heard that the secret realm of Lee Palace is connected to the tail of the dragon vein of Shenzhou, and can know the general trend of the world's destiny, and be a backup for the former Tianzun in case of unexpected events in an sect. Is this true or false? It's just a rumor. Elder Sheeding waved his hand, it's been tens of thousands of years, or it may be a false compilation by later generations, so there is no way to verify it. It's just that before the demise of the ancient sect, the Lee Palace did release a batch of powerful magic weapons and spells. But at the time, the end of the law and war had already appeared, and the world was in endless fighting. The disciples sent by them sect to participate in the trial were almost all good at fighting. So if the reward for leaving the palace is to strengthen combat power, it may be more related to the disciples' performance in the secret realm. I hope so. The sect master sighed, but without the pure Yuan Qi pill, it is not easy to quickly cleanse the marrow and cut the meridians, so we can only arrange for him to go to Shushan again. Elder Sheeding twisted his beard and said nothing. Kyo Chang-Tien returned to the cabin and immediately read the save file of Luoyan. Point 3. Penglai King Temple, Dormitory. Character Identity. Luoyan. Mirror Flower Water Moon Temple covered, currently traveling through time and space. The save point on Luoyan's side was shortly after the Kunlun envoys left, just after he learned the news of leaving the palace from Elder Sheeding. According to the previous plan, he went to find his senior brother Ling Yushu first. Senior brother Ling Yushu looked like a young man in his early 20s, with a rather bohemian image. At this moment, he was sitting in his room, eating a plate of fried peanuts and drinking. Seeing Luoyan pushing the door and coming in, he quickly stood up and said enthusiastically, "Junior brother, you're just in time. I have a pot of 1,000-year-old polygon multiple run medicinal wine here. Drinking it can increase your martial arts skills by 10 decades. Would you like to try it? Don't lie to me, senior brother." Luoyan said coldly, "Last time you tricked me into drinking that Yuduo wine, you said that drinking it can increase your martial arts skills by half a century. How come it's useless?" "Well, the medicinal effect of Yuduo wine is relatively slow. It takes about 30 years to be completely digested. Don't be in a hurry." Ling Yushu laughed, "Why not try my new brew? The medicinal effect is twice that of Yuduo wine. If the medicinal effect is doubled, does it mean that the digestion time will also be doubled?" Luoyan laughed angrily. "Yes. Junior brother, you're really insightful. Go to hell. Senior sister, she said that if you keep drinking, I will randomly select 100 jars from those jars buried in your backyard and pour old vinegar into them." Ling Yushu was horrified and shouted anxiously, "Absolutely not. This new wine is like a virgin and can only be opened by me personally. None of you were allowed to touch it." Luoyan. So the eldest brother is still Brother Gongba. Chapter 61. Bring all your equipment and re-enter the palace. Ling Yushu hurried to the backyard, first checking the wine jars buried underground to see if there were any signs that they had been dug out recently. Then he went to the workshop, took out a flying sword, and forced it to Luoyan, smiling. "Junior brother, You did a good job. If junior sister plots against the wine jars in my backyard again in the future, you must notify me in advance. Luo Yan looked down and saw that it was indeed the pink flying sword in his memory. He frowned slightly and was about to speak when he heard Ling Yushu say, I thought you would go to the Li Palace to participate in the trial soon, so I gave you this flying sword. This is the 9th level wood-based flying sword Turtle, which I refined with the heart of a 1000-year-old peach wood and the poisonous miasma of a swamp as the auxiliary material. It can not only poison human flesh and blood, but also pollute people's magic weapons. I think it is most suitable for your gentle and humble character. Senior brother, do you have any misunderstanding about the word gentle and humble? Luo Yan was speechless and could only accept it solemnly, thank his senior brother and then leave. After saying goodbye to Mishu, Luo Yan planned to go to Shilili to borrow the heaven-turning seal. Mishu was in an empty room in Yu King Temple at this time, arranging the surrounding environment with her senior sisters and junior sisters. Seeing Luo Yan coming from outside, Mishu grabbed him and without saying anything, stuffed him with a test paper and pen and ink. Little junior brother, you came at the right time. Do our freshman entrance test and see how many points you can get. I dare say that I have to take an exam to join your fan club. Luo Yan thought weakly. Such a rubbish company should be closed down as soon as possible. He sighed and looked at the test paper. The first question on it was, what is the most attractive charm of Qiu Chain Tian? No less than 10 items. Luo Yan resisted the urge to tremble and vomit blood, and continued to read down. The second and third questions were, what is Qiu Chain Tian's favorite quote? What is Qiu Chain Tian's favorite color? Further down, the questions were basically similar, about 60 in total. Luo Yan. He wrote for a long time while holding back his shame. Shilili took the time to lean over, took a look, and said, Qiu Chain Tian's favorite color is azure. Are you mistaken? What I like is the azure blue of the sky throne. Which man would like a greenish color like azure? Luo Yan crossed out the answer expressionlessly and wrote azure again. He only heard Shilili looking at his test paper and continued. My favorite quote is we came from Kunlun together and helped each other out of righteousness. Ha ha, most people wrote this. The charm of Qiu Chain Tian, the answer is good, but you miss one point, that is, although he is high and mighty, he is also approachable. The seemingly contradictory contrast is the core of his personality charm. Luo Yan suppressed the urge to vomit and changed all the answers on the test paper according to Mishu's instructions. Shilili took the test paper and put it away, saying with satisfaction, you answered very well, junior brother. From today on, you are the 16th official member of our Chain Time Club. Luo Yan said woodenly, okay, senior sister, and lend me the Fanchen seal. What do you want to borrow the Fanchen seal for? Is it for the Li Palace trial? Shilili took out the Fanchen seal and handed it over readily. Here you go. Luo Yan took it in surprise and asked, you gave me the Fanchen seal, so what are you going to use when you go to the Li Palace? The third senior sister made me a replica of the beating god whip, which is much better than the Fanchen seal. Shilili replied. Luo Yan didn't know what expression to show to this little rich woman, so he could only give a forced smile. After bidding farewell to Shilili, Luo Yan went to other shops in the Taoist temple and bought a large number of talismans and elixirs. Finally, he took out the Mingjing that the third senior sister Li Wangruo gave him last time and took it with him. Okay, fully armed. Jing. What else do I need to prepare? Luo Yan asked in his heart. Kunlun Mirror was silent for a moment, and then played the scene recorded in the Palace of Departure for him. This even has a movie? Luo Yan was overjoyed and quickly watched the whole process again. In the trip to the Palace of Departure, Luo Yan used a total of 5 combat methods. First, the 9th level wood flying sword to. Second, the heaven-turning seal. Third, a large number of Yansong talismans. Fourth, Kalpa Jing pill. Fifth, Tongming mirror. Well, no, there is one more thing missing, that is, the Shushan sword technique body and sword integration used when killing Emperor Shishan's clone in the 4 Kingshire land. So Luo Yan reloaded the file and went to Ling Yunpo, and did not tell senior sister that he had entered the marrow washing stage. He first took the Kingping sword into his body, using his body to nourish the sword, and practiced the body and sword integration for a few days, and mastered this move. Then he reloaded the file and returned to Luo Yan's side, and began to prepare for the trip to the Palace of Departure. Soon it was the day when the Palace of Departure was opened. Penglayu King Temple prepared a large number of dragon boats and shuttle boats to carry the disciples to meet Kunlun in the ocean. In order to avoid seeing Qiu Cheng Tian, Luo Yan locked himself in the cabin the whole time and practiced the lines and expressions he would recite later. As a result, the senior brothers and sisters seemed to have misunderstood. Seeing Mishi chatting with Qiu Cheng Tian outside, they thought Luo Yan was heartbroken, so they came to comfort the little junior brother. Luo Yan could only comfort them one by one through the cabin door. Soon it was time for the palace to open. Mishi also hurried over and knocked on the door outside. "Little junior brother. The palace is open, come out quickly." "Oh." Luo Yan checked his equipment again, then got up and opened the door to go out, but was grabbed by Shilili's hand, rushed to the side of the ship, and jumped into the rainbow light outside. The fragrance, softness and smoothness in his hand made him lose his mind for a moment, but he was soon dragged by Shilili into the glorious palace gate, and the world spun around, and he was teleported away. Luo Yan opened his eyes in the secret realm. He looked at Qiu Cheng Tian, who was stunned beside him. In his field of vision, the Kunlun mirror assistant turned on the prompter, and all the lines to be read appeared in his eyes. "Don't panic, listen to me," Luo Yan said expressionlessly. "I'm you from the future timeline. To be precise, I'm you who returned to the cabin of the ship outside after I completely cleared the palace and left, and immediately read the Luo Yan line. I came here to help you resolve an upcoming disaster. You can verify my identity through the Kunlun mirror, because I also have a Kunlun mirror on me." Qiu Cheng Tian on the opposite side was silent for a moment, as if he was communicating with the Kunlun mirror in his sea of consciousness. Then, he showed a helpless expression of "Your reading is too perfunctory." After finishing the following lines, Luo Yan rode on the sword light and started to move forward with Qiu Cheng Tian. The Kunlun mirror assistant released a small electronic map at the right time, guiding Luo Yan to fly towards the ghost gate. When he arrived at the ghost gate, Luo Yan explained a few words numbly, and then knocked down the soul-catching messenger with a jade pivot thunder. The two turned into sword light and escaped, and instantly passed through the ghost gate and rushed towards the Forgotten River. The second entry into the palace will not be described in detail, so don't guess blindly. Chapter 62. A Jin opens up to Kingpin. In the 10 palaces of Fendu, following the instructions of the Kunlun mirror, he successfully led Qiu Cheng Tian from the beginning to the end. In the 4 kings of Shura, Zhu Yingyan was still in the front to push the troops, and the two of them followed secretly from behind, and finally snatched a boss, and once again witnessed the anger of the junior sister. In the 6th heavenly demon land, Luo Yan sat down in the woods and let Qiu Cheng Tian, who was clear in his heart, go through the level by himself. In the 3 kinds of beasts land, Luo Yan, who turned into a raccoon beast, talked to Qiu Cheng Tian about beasts and birds, and then took him to the cave to absorb the essence of the sun and the moon, and successfully skipped the Qi refining stage and entered the marrow washing stage. In the first line of fire hell, Luo Yan led Qiu Cheng Tian to flee in various ways, and was hit by Su Jian's Taoist slash in the middle. He relied on the Tongming mirror to avoid fatal injuries, and then used elixirs to remove the cold poison. In the 2 realms of the Red Dust Land, Luo Yan stayed far away throughout the whole process, watching the illusion battle between Qiu Cheng Tian and Zhu Yinlian, and Zesu, and Shiluli, and even the Great Door was about to be wiped out. It was very enjoyable, very exciting, and very wonderful. Before the two of them were teleported to the main hall of the Li Palace, Luo Yan said leisurely, "The 2 worlds of the mortal world have been passed, what do you think?" "Fuck you." Qiu Cheng Tian responded coldly. "Why do you scold yourself?" Luo Yan asked with interest. "Then why do you want to hurt yourself?" Luo Yan laughed and said, "Because I am your future self, I have already experienced the sure field just now. I would really feel bad if I don't let you experience it too." Seeing Qiu Cheng Tian's frustrated expression on the opposite side, Luo Yan became a little bored, and explained a few more words to him before driving him into the main hall of the Li Palace. Then, Luo Yan slipped to the back of the main hall of the Li Palace, found a place that was not easy to be discovered, and hid. "A Jing," he said coldly in his heart, "tell me, what exactly is that catastrophe?" Kunlun Jing was silent for a moment, and asked, "How do you know that I can answer this question of yours?" Luo Yan said in a deep voice, "The gift of time, do you think I will believe this? These lines contain too many details and clear directionality, how could they be written by the Tao? A Jin, although you have never mentioned it, I know that in addition to reading the past, you can actually observe the future. Otherwise, how do you know that the world will be destroyed in 1,000 years? Since you can observe the future, it means that you have observed that I am about to face an unavoidable death catastrophe, and thus decided to use the extraordinary means of letting my future self save my past self, which naturally becomes the only and reasonable explanation. A long silence. Do you know? Mira said faintly, knowing that future is not a good thing. The future is uncertain, but the moment you know the result, it has been determined. Whether it is good or bad, whether it is continuation or destruction. Oh? Luoyang pondered for a moment, then sneered. In this case, it means that when you observe the destruction of the world 1,000 years later, this result has become history and cannot be changed, right? For everything in this world, yes. Mira whispered, only people from the other world can interfere with the direction of the future. Luoyang suddenly shuddered. With the help of Yuan Kaianwa, he immediately understood the implicit meaning of Mira. Stinger's sealed box was in an uncertain state before being observed. When Mira observed the dead cat inside, the cat's death was confirmed. Taking observation as the dividing point, the state before was uncertain, and the after was confirmed death. The process from before to after has been imprinted on the timeline. No matter what Mira does, it cannot change this timeline. Because all the efforts it made, including itself, are already part of this timeline, and are the established past leading to world destruction. It is impossible for a person to pull himself up by his hair, and individuals within the light cone cannot break the established fate. The only possible way out is to introduce the part that does not belong to this timeline. That is, outside the light cone, it is theoretically impossible to enter the light cone, but suddenly cross over. You help me repair the sky and save the world, and I give you the top cultivation talent. We have established such a mutually beneficial relationship from the beginning. Mira whispered, so, even if there are some things I can't explain to you, I can promise that I will never harm you. Here. Luoyang sneered, I am afraid that you will do something behind my back that you think is not harmful to me in the name of doing good for me. No way. Mira said guiltily, look, I have been living in your sea of consciousness, how could I do other things behind your back? So what is the death calamity I will face? Luoyang did not continue to ask, but said indifferently. Two people who have reached the great perfection of the Wafu stage want to kill you. Jing replied, they brought some powerful defensive magic weapons. Okay. Luoyang closed his eyes. After thinking quickly for a moment, he released the Kingping sword from his fingertips. After the Shushan sword immortal entered the Shixie stage, he could use his body to nourish the sword and use his own bones as a sword box to hold and nourish the flying sword. Over time, he could communicate with the flying sword in mind and spirit, and connect with the Ki, which is the so-called birth sword weapon method. The Kingping sword slipped out from his fingertips, and a gentle voice sounded in his mind. What's wrong, Master Sword Master? Mira said that two people want to kill me, and they are carrying powerful defensive magic weapons. Luoyang said coldly, I want you to lend me a hand. Simple. Kingping Sword smiled, since Master Sword Master has entered the marrow cleansing stage, I can unlock another Taoist method. This method is called after the rain in the empty mountain, which can condense the water essence into a sword energy the size of a flying needle to attack the enemy. Just chant the mantra where the clouds rise, the rain comes suddenly. Master Sword Master, you should know that water is said to moisten the lower, which means that the water essence has the ability to penetrate everywhere. This move after the rain in the empty mountain is specifically used to break various defensive Taoist methods. If it can be combined with green mist covers the green mountains, it will be extremely useful. After listening to Kingping Sword's charming smile, Luoyang quickly thought it through. The green mist covered the Kanshan mountains, and a thick fog could be raised to isolate the divine consciousness. The power of all non-water-based Taoist magic was halved, but the water-based Taoist magic of Empty Mountain after the rain was not affected by this. As for his trump card, the Jade Pivot Thunder, although it would be negatively affected, its original power was ridiculously large, and it was still considerable even after being halved. More importantly, the fog completely obscured his figure, and also concealed the trajectory of the Kingping Sword and the Jade Pivot Thunder, forming an excellent environment for a sneak attack. As long as the design is proper and the defense-breaking effect of Empty Mountain after the rain is utilized, even if there are two awful-level enemies, it is possible to kill them with one blow. Inside the light cone is destiny, and I come from outside the light cone. Therefore, I am the man of destiny. Chapter 63. Use the trump card to kill two beasts. Luoyang and Qiu Cheng Tian, who had their own strategies, cleared the levels at an incredibly fast speed, far ahead of the people behind them. He had been hiding for a long time, but had not met anyone else who had passed the 6 levels and arrived in front of the square of the main hall of the palace. Just when he was a little doubtful, a figure suddenly appeared in the square. Zhao Wenqing quickly scanned the surroundings and confirmed that there was no one else present. Well, he borrowed the magic weapon of Song, his chief senior brother, and he was also a great perfection of the water level. This time he should be the first to pass the level, right? Next, as long as Qiu Yuan arrived here, he could start setting up a trap to ambush Qiu Cheng's iron. In the dark behind that palace, Luo Yan saw that he was not in a hurry to enter the main hall of the palace, but just rolled his eyes around, so he roughly guessed that the other party had ulterior motives. A jinn, is it him? Yes, he is one of them. Okay. Luo Yan immediately chanted a spell in his heart, the mist is ethereal, and the smoke is floating like a mirage. In an instant, the square in front of the main hall of the palace was shrouded in fog. Zhao Wenqing was shrouded in thick fog, and his consciousness was restricted. He immediately noticed something was wrong and hurriedly activated the magic weapon, the Divine Fire Cover. This is a replica of the acquired spiritual treasure 9 Dragon's Divine Fire Cover. It can not only protect itself from external damage, but also trap the opponent in the divine fire to refine it. It is a powerful magic weapon that combines offensive and defensive. The divine fire cover fell down, and the golden and red light flashed, as bright as the morning sun, isolating the thick fog from outside. Zhao Wenqing quickly flew the flying sword and immediately swept around 365 degrees. If someone took advantage of the rising thick fog to launch a close attack on him, they would definitely be killed. However, the flying sword swung in vain, and Zhao Wenqing knew that the other party was still monitoring him. Just as he was about to speak and delay time, he suddenly heard a bang behind that divine fire cover. Green and red color, lightning and lightning. After being hit by the jade pivot thunder from the front, the entire divine fire cover trembled violently, and the luster on it also dimmed a lot. However, after all, it was a 10th level magic weapon specializing in defense, and it was not broken by a divine thunder. Zhao Wenqing quickly infused his true energy and continued to work it, making the divine fire cover's brilliance restored to its new state. Was that the jade pivot thunder just now? He asked tentatively, could it be junior brother Qiu? Another jade pivot thunder hit the divine fire cover, and the brilliance dimmed, and the defensive system was instantly shaky. However, Zhao Wenqing just injected his true energy again, and easily repaired it in the blink of an eye. Why did junior brother Qiu attack me? Unprovoked provocation and murder of fellow disciples of the great sins at Kunlin. Zhao Wenqing's voice was stern, but Luo Yan did not answer in the fog, but just hit him with another jade pivot thunder. Good. Zhao Wenqing had seen the direction of the source of the thunder method, and used the divine fire cover to take the blow again, and at the same time quietly shot out the flying sword. The sword method was activated instantly, but it only rolled up the fog, and no human figure was revealed in it. No, my sword method should be more powerful than this. This fog is so strange. Could it be that it is not a Taoist method, but a forbidden method? Thinking of this, Zhao Wenqing immediately knew that he could not sit still and wait for death. If the opponent tests the limit of the divine fire cover and Qiu Yuan does not arrive in time, the situation will change. Zhao Wenqing looked stern, and quickly chanted the mantra in his heart, activating the 3rd level derivative Taoist method of 9 Heavens Pure Land Realm mantra. The Supreme Chuangji Spirit Talisman. A giant talisman composed of true essence was cast, and the spiritual light and precious flowers stretched into a line. Wherever it passed, the boundless fog all dissipated. This Supreme Chuangji Spirit Talisman actually has the power to suppress Taoism. Zhao Wenqing secretly breathed a sigh of relief, but saw a small square seal flying over from the channel where the fog dissipated. Before his face changed drastically, the heaven-flipping seal smashed directly on the divine fire cover. Bang! With a loud bang that shook the earth, the light on the divine fire cover was mostly extinguished, and even large spiderweb-like deep cracks appeared, which was shocking. Zhao Wenqing was so frightened that his soul flew away, and he immediately used all his strength to drive the true essence to quickly repair the divine fire cover. Fortunately, the heaven-flipping seal failed to work in the first attack, and it rotated in the sky for a long time before hitting the second time. Zhao Wenqing finally breathed a sigh of relief when he saw this. After all, Qiu Cheng's iron was only at the marrow washing stage, and his true Qi was not as good as his true essence. It was also necessary to support the driving of such a replica of the acquired spiritual treasure, and it was impossible to hit it several times quickly in a short period of time. Compared with true essence, true Qi has a decisive quality disadvantage. It can be seen from the fact that the heaven-flipping seal could not break through the divine fire cover, and the speed of destruction was not as fast as his repair speed. Zhao Wenqing calmed down and planned to activate the Supreme Chuangji Spirit Talisman again to completely clean up the surrounding thick fog. The next second, countless water-based sword ki silently passed through the divine fire cover from behind, and instantly cut off his head from his neck. His head rolled down, and his face still had an incredible look of fear. Through the divine consciousness in the fog, Luo Yan stared coldly at the headless corpse opposite. The jade pivot thunder and the heaven-flipping seal in front were just feints. They wanted him to see that this side had repeatedly failed to attack and thus relax his vigilance, and then launch a sneak attack that would kill him. He had already made a clear plan in advance. The battle of the cultivators at the foundation building stage was extremely dependent on rank and trump card. The so-called rank refers to the rank of the flying sword, magic weapon, Taoist magic, and of course one's own cultivation. If it were an ordinary monk at the marrow washing stage, he would have been killed to pieces by this monk at the transformation stage. Why could he kill back? Because although his cultivation was not as good as the other party, he hit the higher level Kingping Sword, Heaven Flipping Seal, and Jade Pivot Thunder, so he could fight back and forth with the other party across levels. The so-called trump card naturally refers to the secrecy of one's own fighting methods. Among the three trump cards mentioned above, the Sword, the Seal, and the Thunder, only the Jade Pivot Thunder is often used by Qiu Chang's Time and is known to the Kunlun sect. The opponent brought the divine fire cover this time, which just perfectly restrained the attack of the Jade Pivot Thunder. This is the price of the trump card being seen through. If he didn't have the Kingping Sword and the Fanchen Seal, the result would definitely be disastrous. Fortunately, as a three-party spy, he is best at hiding himself and burying endless trump cards. Thinking of this, he almost had an idea of how to fight the next battle. After waiting for a while, a figure suddenly emerged again in the thick fog. Although the location of entering the secret realm of the palace cannot be determined, the endpoint must be in front of the main hall of the palace. Therefore, Qiu Yuan and Zhao Wenqing had already agreed in advance to use magic weapons and intelligence advantages to quickly pass the level, and then ambush at the entrance of the main hall. In fact, although Qiu Yuan arrived a little later, he was not more than a quarter of an hour behind Zhao Wenqing, so there was nothing wrong with the plan itself. If he hadn't missed the fact that Qiu Chang's Time could actually speak through the strategy. As soon as he appeared in the thick fog, Qiu Yuan frowned in confusion. According to the Yu King sect disciple, after passing the 6 levels, it should be the main hall of the palace. How come it seems like a new level? As soon as this thought came to his mind, he suddenly found that his vision was spinning. It was not because of the sense of spatial confusion caused by the forbidden teleportation, but because his head had already flown up. After successfully completing the double kill with after the new rain in the empty mounting, Luo Yan also discovered the advantages of this Taoist method. In the fog, it can not only be emitted silently, but also has its own defense-breaking effect, which can be called a legitimate sneak attack weapon. Humph, what a Kingping Sword, it is worthy of being my Ling Yunpo's designated natal sword. After carefully checking the bodies of the two, Luo Yan took out the 2 flying swords they carried, Zhao Wenqing's magic weapon, the magic weapon of the divine fire cover, and the magic weapon of the Jade Embarks that Qiu Yuan had never used. Both flying swords were of the 9th order, so they were kept for now. The 2 magic weapons were also 10th order magic weapons that imitated acquired spiritual treasures. The divine fire cover can defend itself, and it can also trap people and refine them with true fire. The Jade Embarks can also defend itself, and it can also destroy the enemy's true essence with sound waves. Both 10th order magic weapons can be left to Luo Yan to use. If someone asks where they came from, just say that they were refined by the 3rd senior sister. Don't believe it? You'll look down on our Tiangong Fang, right? Finally, after using the poisonous Taoist magic on the Toho sword to destroy the corpses and confirm that there were no clues left, Luo Yan waved his hand to remove the green mist cover and the Kangluan. Then he turned and climbed the steps, pushed open the door of the main hall of the palace, and prepared to teleport away. Before arriving at the futon, Luo Yan knelt on the futon skillfully and bowed to the scroll. Then the ethereal female voice from before sounded again. Luo Yan, a disciple of Penglai from that branch of the sect. He passed the 6 levels of the trial and is the first person to pass it this time. His achievement is, suddenly, the voice seemed to be stuck and there was no movement for a long time. Luo Yan. Chapter 64. Acquired 5 elements Great Extinction Divine Light. Speaking of which, Luo Yan had actually noticed that the female voice he heard in the main hall of the Palace of Departure after passing the level was a bit like some kind of preset artificial intelligence. In the terms of this world, it was a mechanical and rigid spirit. If the female voice was really a spirit, then the entire Palace of Departure was likely to be a giant magic weapon. This giant magic weapon operates according to a fixed rule and is regularly open to the outside world. Its access rights are partially controlled by the Penglayu King Temple, which is used to test and train disciples of the sect. At the same time, this magic weapon has the ability to identify the soul. The evidence is that whether it is Menpo in the 10 palaces of Fendu or the demonic sound in the 6th heaven demon land, they will avoid Luo Yan while targeting Qiu Cheng's Haiyan. Because in the judgment procedure of the Palace of Departure's prohibition, Qiu Cheng's Haiyan and Luo Yan are the same person. So here comes the question. As usual, the foundation building disciples who passed the Palace of Departure trial will not be able to enter the Palace of Departure again in a short period of time after being teleported away. The Palace of Departure is only open for 3 days each time and then closed, and the time point from the next opening is often hundreds of years apart. At this time, the previous batch of foundation building disciples who had come to the Li Palace had either died or formed a pill, and naturally lost the qualification to enter the Li Palace. Therefore, theoretically, it is impossible for a disciple to enter the Li Palace twice. Qiu Cheng's Haiyan and Luo Yan, the Li Palace's prohibition identification belongs to the same person, but when the Penglayu King Temple opened the Li Palace, they were registered as 2 different people. So, in the female voice in the main hall of the Li Palace just now, there was an error of Qiu Cheng's Haiyan is the first person to pass the level and Luo Yan is also that first person to pass the level. In the state of hearing the 1,000 enlightenments, Luo Yan thought of this almost instantly, and then shouted not good 3 times in his heart. Using a program as an analogy, if a bug appears, the program will probably report an error directly and cannot run. Then, will this Li Palace artifact spirit also fall into an error state and be unable to teleport me out? In this case, it would be terrible. Just when Luo Yan was sweating all over, he heard the female voice mechanically say, "No, strange." It hummed for a long time, and finally sighed. So that's it. Since you can borrow the secret formation, forcibly open the ban, and return to my palace again, I think the outside world's sect has long been destroyed. Luo Yan. What? My San King Orthodox sect is destroyed. The female voice sighed again and said, "In that case, I will teach you the immortal method postnatal 5 elements Great Extinction Divine Light. You must practice it well, and you must put self-protection first. One day, if you're able to do it, you must re-establish your own sect and inherit mine sect's unique skills." Luo Yan was stunned for a moment, and then he shouted in his heart, "Wonderful, really wonderful." It turns out that this secret realm of Li Palace is not only a place for the disciples of the sect to build their foundation, but also a way out for the sect to fall after its demise. According to the spirit of the Li Palace, there should be some kind of secret formation inside the San King Orthodox sect. If one day, the sect is in a situation where all the disciples are wiped out, the elite disciples can be sent back to the Li Palace to obtain the precious resources here, preserve the fire, and continue the sect's tradition. Because of the tricky operation of the Kunlun mirror, I came to the Li Palace for the 2nd time, and just ran into the logical loophole of the spirit, making it mistakenly think that I came here through the secret formation. After all, under normal circumstances, a disciple cannot enter the Li Palace twice. Luo Yan suppressed his excitement and continued to listen to it for a long time, but nothing fell. He was stunned for a long time, and suddenly reacted, and immediately swore sincerely. Disciple Luo Yan swears to practice this method well and protect mine sect's tradition. Very good. The female voice said with satisfaction, and a light spot appeared in the air and rushed into his spiritual palace. In an instant, Luo Yan's heart was shocked. The light entered his fountain and immediately turned into red, green, yellow, black and white, illuminating the whole spiritual palace. After a long time, the 5-colored light dived into the depths of the sea of Qi, and he had a set of cultivation methods in his mind. The acquired 5 elements Extinction Divine Light, with the power of the 5 elements, can melt gold, cut wood, cover water, extinguish fire, and bind soil. It has infinite power. Any magic weapon, magic sword, magic, anything within the 5 elements can be broken. Now that the evil demons are raging in Jiuzhou, the orthodoxy of the sect has been destroyed, and there is no safe place outside. The female voice continued faintly, "How long do you want to stay here? Then stay. If you want to go somewhere, I will teleport you at the Lee Palace formation, and you can go anywhere in the East China Sea. And send a ticket back to the city. Luo Yan thought again and figured out all the relationships, and then chose to teleport to the main gate of the Lee Palace. As the world spun, he arrived at the boundary of the water film. Except for Qiu Cheng Tian, the others had not come out yet. Following the rainbow light back to the deck, he saw that the head of Ziwi had disappeared. Probably he had returned to the treasure ship on the other side of Kunlin. Shi Dingxinran called him over, talked a few words, and then asked about the reward for passing the level. Luo Yan had already thought it through clearly. According to the spirit of the Lee Palace, the acquired 5 elements Great Extinction Divine Light is enough to establish a sect and pass on the orthodox teaching of the sect. If the chief master knew that it was an immortal method, he would definitely be suspicious. Therefore, Luo Yan could only choose to hand over the Jade Empire Bell, one of the spoils. Looking at the Jade Empire Bell, Elder Shiding was a little surprised. The Jade Empire Bell, a 10th level magic weapon, is extremely powerful in defense. It is normal to be a reward for the Lee Palace. However, Qiu Cheng Tian had obtained the 5 Thunders Orthodox method, which was a pearl and jade before him. As the second person to pass the Lee Palace trial, Luo Yan's reward was too shabby in comparison. However, Elder Shiding had no doubt about this. After all, Luo Yan was an honest kid. He had learned all kinds of knowledge about refining tools in Tiangong workshop, so it was natural that he liked magic weapons more. So he told Luo Yan a few words, which was nothing more than don't go out and play around with defensive magic weapons. Luo Yan naturally agreed. He returned to his cabin and closed the door. He couldn't hold back his excitement and searched again in his sea of consciousness. According to the general outline of the mental method given by Li Gong, the acquired 5 elements Extinction Divine Light was created based on the innate 5 elements Chaos Divine Light. The innate 5 elements Chaos Divine Light is the innate magical power of the Peacock clan in the Donghuan demon world, which is known to be able to brush away everything. No matter what magic weapon or magic sword you have, as long as you can't jump out of the 5 elements, you can wipe out your magical power with a brush, and your spirituality will be completely gone. Even immortals will be very afraid of it. As for this acquired Extinction Divine Light, although its power is not as strong as the innate Chaos Divine Light, it is at the same level of immortal law, and is known to be indestructible. When the magic weapon or sword on the opposite side comes, it can be severely damaged with a single swipe. Continue to swipe a few more times, and the power will be about the same as the innate Chaos Divine Light. If the Kingping sword is Ling Yunpo's natal sword, then this acquired Extinction Great 5 Elements Divine Light can be regarded as Luo Yan's natal Taoism, and it is a supreme existence worthy of concentrating one's life energy to study. I can't believe it, it's the acquired 5 Elements Great Extinction Divine Light. Kunlun Mirror also sighed. HMPH, a Jing. Luo Yan said proudly, what do you think of my immortal method? Kunlun Jing was unhappy with his attitude, so he said stubbornly, if you say it's strong, it's not that strong. Compared with Kongquan's innate 5 elements of Great Chaos Divine Light, it is definitely not as good. If you practice this method to a high level, at most it will be at the level of his 5 feathers, and the power is about the same as that of an acquired spiritual treasure. An acquired spiritual treasure is enough. Luo Yan said thoughtfully, I'm not a peacock, how can I get the innate Chaos Divine Light? Speaking of this, my mirror flowers and water moons does have the Peacock clan's innate magical powers engraved on it, but it can only be activated when it reaches the nascent soul stage. Oh, what is the corresponding personality? Arrogant. Okay, stop talking, stop it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 65. Exchanging Tokens, Deepening Bonds. After Mishi returned from the Lee Palace, the Tiangong Fan ship began to return. In the cabin, Luo Yan was sitting on his bed, concentrating on comprehending the acquired 5 elements Great Extinction Divine Light. According to the outline annotation in his memory, he first needed to refine the true key into the primordial magnetic energy, then obtain the 5 elements true veins, and finally refine them in the primordial magnetic energy to transform the energy into divine light. The acquired 5 elements true veins need to be sought from the dying wood, the fire that is difficult to extinguish, the humble and wet soil without dart, the gold that is like jade but not jade, and the water without roots but never ends. These 5 categories are rare natural wonders, and are also the real threshold for practicing the acquired 5 elements Great Extinction Divine Light. Fortunately, the Lee Palace has thoughtfully found all these 5 kinds of wonders and extracted the corresponding 5 elements true veins, which are the red, green, yellow, black and white 5 color light spots that fell into Luo Yan's sea of consciousness at the time. Next, Luo Yan only needs to slowly cultivate the Yuan Gang Qi, and then refine these postnatal 5 elements true veins into it. He was practicing here, and Miss Shi rushed to the door, knocked on the door a few times, and then pushed the door open. "Junior brother." She threw herself on Luo Yan's bed and said excitedly, "Guess what I got from the Lee Palace? It must be something extremely powerful." Luo Yan said helplessly, "Forgetting to lock the door, what a mistake." "Huh." Shi Li boasted, "Have you heard of the secret records of the 5 latitudes Jingtian?" "Huh." The just right confused expression on Luo Yan's face made Miss Shi more satisfied. So she explained with great interest. The so-called 5 latitudes are the collective names of the 5 stars, Tabai, Swixing, Qingxing, Yingyo, and Xingxing. The secret record of the 5 latitudes is a profound Qi refining technique that uses the power of these 5 stars to breathe and refine Qi. In addition to refining Qi, there are many powerful derivative Taoist methods in it, but they all need to activate the 5 latitudes to use them. I see. Luo Yan understood and nodded. There are 2 main criteria for judging the quality of a Qi refining technique. One is the efficiency and purity of refining true Qi. The higher the efficiency and the higher the purity, the higher the grade of the final pill. The other is to see whether this Qi refining technique has its own derivative Taoist methods. Only the profound Qi refining technique that fits the Great Do can generate various mysterious methods while breathing and refining Qi and improving cultivation, saving the effort of practicing other Taoist methods. Father said that from today on, I don't have to practice with you. Shi Li boasted, because the efficiency of my 5-layer Jingtian secret record is much higher than the 3-flower gathering spirit technique of our Tiangong workshop. Luo Yan was speechless, but smiled and said, "Congratulations, senior sister. Isn't Miss Shi too ignorant of the world? Don't you know that it is the easiest to implicate parents and family members when this girl goes out and jumps on the face? It is because she is spoiled by everyone in Tiangong workshop, otherwise she will talk nonsense outside, making the listeners jealous and covetous, and even attracting disasters for no reason." Thinking of this, Luo Yan asked cautiously, "Senior sister, didn't the master tell you not to tell this to others?" "Of course I did." Shi Li rolled her eyes at him, "Don't show off your wealth and don't reveal your skills. Isn't this a truth known to everyone? Then why do you, junior brother, you are not someone else?" Miss Shi interrupted him, "I tell you, if it weren't for the fact that you need the 5-layer mysterious pill to practice the 5-layer secret record, and the pills that Li Gong gave me were only enough for one person to practice, I would like to pass this secret record to you, and we can practice it together." "Hey, senior sister, there is no need to be like this." Luo Yan immediately refused righteously, "I'm not the kind of villain who would covet your things." "I didn't say you were, did I?" Shi Li blinked and said, "As a matter of course, if I can pass it to you, as your senior sister, of course I won't hide it." "Senior sister," Luo Yan smiled bigly. What he said just now actually had 2 meanings. The first is that I am not interested in your 5-layer Jingtian secret record, so I will not plot against your 5-layer mysterious pill. The second is that you should not say this outside. What if a villain hears it and wants to steal this bottle of pill? As a result, Miss Shi stayed in the basement and did not even understand the first meaning, which made Luo Yan want to go crazy. Hypocritical personality, synchronization value +1. The reminder of Kunlun mirror sounded in his mind, and Luo Yan was numb all over. He did not intend to think about why the synchronization value was increased. He simply exposed the matter, took out the heaven-turning seal from his arms, and said, "Senior sister borrowed the treasure and helped me a lot during the trip to Lee Palace. Now it is just right to return it to its original owner. My heaven-turning seal is very useful, right?" Shi Li said with a smile, but did not take it. "Indeed." Luo Yan also smiled. "Then I'll continue to lend it to you for a while." Shi Li waved his hand, "I now have the God Strike Whip, so I don't need the heaven-flipping seal for the time being." The so-called God Strike Whip is a replica of the acquired spiritual treasure God Strike Whip, and it is also a 10th level magic weapon. The spiritual treasure God Strike Whip is also in Pengliu King Temple, but I don't know which elder is in charge. Last time, it was borrowed by Elder Shi Din, who asked the weapon refining genius 3rd senior sister to study the way to improve weapon refining. The God Strike Whip is the final product of the research. Okay. After all, this magic weapon was also used by Luo Yan. No matter how the other party responded, he just smashed it with a seal. Thank you, senior sister, by the way. Shilly clapped his hands and said, I heard that the reward you got in the Lee Palace was the 10th level magic weapon Jade Embarks. Now that I have the God Strike Whip, I'm lacking a defensive magic weapon. Why don't you lend it to me to play with? Bah, what do you mean by my junior brother, lend it to me to play with? If you are plotting against my Jade Embarks, just say it directly. However, Luo Yan already had the divine fire cover, so he didn't need the Jade Embarks. In addition, Mishi cleverly used the heaven-flipping seal to exchange it, so he readily agreed and gave the Jade Embarks to Shiluli. Seeing that he gave it readily, Shiluli became even happier, and her eyes almost turned into crescents. Good junior brother. I knew you would lend it to me. She looked at the Jade Embarks from left to right, and almost couldn't let it go. Just as she was about to ask in detail about how to use it, the warship outside had returned to Yuking Temple and landed on the top of Penglai Fairy Mountain. So Shiluli excitedly pulled Luo Yan off the boat and rushed towards the sect. She couldn't wait to try the power of the Jade Embarks. Elder Shiding and a group of senior brothers and sisters were walking up to the deck from the cabin below, and saw the two holding hands and running away like flying. Alas! Elder Shiding couldn't help but sigh. His daughter started to practice Taoism at the age of 5, and it has been almost 20 years now. How come her temperament is still like that of a 13 or 14-year-old girl? But to be fair, it is good that she can be close to Luo Yan, a junior brother. Among his disciples, the eldest disciple is usually the closest to her, but the two seem to have only a brother-sister relationship. The main reason is that Ling Yushu is too unrestrained and really cannot be seen by Shiluli. Thinking of this, Elder Shiding came back to his senses and laughed again. No matter who his daughter falls in love with in the end, no matter how much he worries as an old father, what's the use? As long as she can be happy, that's all. Chapter 66. End of the volume. Let's talk about the creation process of this book. From the initial design to the finished product, this book has actually been updated several times. The first version is the clone flow, which is similar to one person controlling several bodies, just like opening multiple QQ accounts at the same time, controlling one side and then the other. As a result, the book friends in the group said don't write it, the clone flow is a minotaur. The reason is that the Spanish fighters believe that the clone cannot represent the original body. If the clone falls in love with a girl, the original body is bullied. Here the fighters are divided into two factions. Among them, the Protestant fighters believe that the clone is bullied if it has consciousness, but it is not if it has no consciousness and is completely controlled by the protagonist. Pure blood fighters believe that the clone and the original body are not the same body, so as long as it is a clone flow, it is bullied. There are also extreme factions here, who believe that all the protagonists who have been soul-crossed are bullied, because the physical body is the original owner who has been crossed. I don't like bullies, so I changed it to time management. The second version, the initial design of time management, is to use the time manager of the Harry Potter series. At the beginning, I designed a female protagonist named Jiri Lang, with the Taoist name Minhel. Like the protagonist, she also traveled from another world. Her name before traveling was the previous name plus Taoist name read backwards. She also brought the time manager. Then the protagonist had just traveled to a fairy master. Because he was seriously injured, he could not pass the catastrophe and ascend to heaven. He needed the Butian stone to repair his injuries. So he calculated the protagonist to find that fragment of the Butian stone. As a reward, he passed his own Taoism to the protagonist. As a result, the editor said, "This is not good." Many glass-hearted readers don't like the feeling of being calculated by others to do things unless the master has a beautiful face, big breasts, a thin waist and long legs. I don't like teacher-student love, because if I write it, I will be reported. If I don't write it, readers will curse and don't understand the difficulties of the creator at all, so I changed the master to a kind version. The protagonist took the initiative to find that Butian stone for the master. The third version, a long single-line design. The initial design was to have one vest per volume. The protagonist would first play the role of Qiu Changtai and join the Kunlun sect, write at least 100,000 words, and then turn around to open a new vest and play the role of Ling Yunpo and join the Shushan sect. The main consideration was that if the camera switches frequently, some readers might not be able to adapt. As a result, the editor said, "Your cheat code won't be reflected in this way." The protagonist's cheat code is time management, multi-line operation, interweaving with each other, and several characters supporting each other. This is the core of this article. For example, Ling Yunpo wanted to kill people across levels but couldn't, so he asked Qiu Changtian to ask Ziwi's headmaster for Taoism. Qiu Changtian wanted to show off in front of his junior sister, so he borrowed the advanced sword controlling skills he learned from Ling Yunpo. If the camera doesn't switch, it's impossible to operate multiple lines, and this cool point is gone. I don't like to lose sight of the main point. After all, the cool point is the root. So I changed it to writing 3 or 4 chapters for each character before switching the camera, and at the same time delayed the appearance of other aliases, so that everyone can be familiar with the 3 names Qiu Changtian, Ling Yunpo, and Oyan in order to lower the threshold of understanding. Even the protagonist's real name is not written for the time being. The 4th version, the Xiangxia flavor. The initial plot is that the protagonist is Qiu Changtian, relying on his peerless talent of Taoism, step by step to complete the Kunlun Ascension Road, shocking the entire Kunlun sect. The elders competed to accept him as a disciple, and finally the Ziwi sect master accepted him as a personal disciple against all odds. As a result, the editor said, "This routine is too vulgar, and where is the heroine? I want to see her in the first chapter." Indeed, Zhu Yingyan was originally planned to appear in the 8th chapter, and his name was Zhu Qingqian at the time, but this means that it is a bit slow to heat up. I struggled for a long time in this regard. Should I describe Kunlun Tai King sect first at the beginning to set off the Xiangxia flavor? Or should I let Zhu Yingyan appear as soon as possible and unfold it in the way of a light novel? After struggling for almost a week, I finally chose the latter. I don't like slow-burning stories. The fairy tale flavor can be slowly built up later. If you can't write it in 1 volume, you can write 2 volumes. If you can't find the heroine at the beginning, readers will give up the book. The 5th version, Kunlun Mirror. At the beginning, there was no Kunlun Mirror. The protagonist relied on the time manager to run back and forth and used the compound potion to disguise his appearance. As a result, this would make the protagonist look too despicable. In order to get the fragments of the sky repairing stone, he deceived his senior brothers, sisters, junior brothers and sisters. How bad. I don't like despicable protagonists, so it was changed to Kunlun Mirror to repair the sky. The protagonist had to infiltrate various major sects for a noble purpose. The role-playing of the character is just a feature of the Mirror Flower and the Water Moon. The character itself is actually very good. It would be sad to deceive a person for a long time. The 6th version, the Mask Flow. At the beginning, there was no backstab of the Kunlun Mirror. The protagonist played various characters. After getting all the fragments, he stood in the sky, with hairspray hands, blocked the sword of senior sister and with 1 finger, and so on. As a result, the book friends in the group said, "This feels like a spiritual minotaur. The girl likes your disguised appearance, not you." I don't like to be unreasonable, so I muted all these book friends. Then arranged Kunlun Mirror to backstab, and secretly reveal the true side of the protagonist to everyone without the protagonist knowing. For example, Zhu Yingyan, who admires Qiu Changtian's invincible personality, actually admires him to the point of jealousy, pain, and even self-hate. In addition, this book is not a sadomasochistic theme, so it is impossible to have feelings. But Kunlun Mirror quietly revealed the true side of the protagonist to her, and replaced her impression of Qiu Changtian little by little, which changed Zhu Yingyan's perception of him. For example, Zisu's attitude towards the unyielding teenager Ling Yunpo is just a simple sister who loves her brother. Miss Shi doesn't like the Oyan who pretends to be stupid, and so on. If the protagonist always keeps the mask personality, there is no way to win their attention. But with Kunlun Mirror's backstab, it's different. In summary, this book has been deleted and revised before it was released, and a total of 6 major versions have been changed. There are countless changes between the minor versions between the major versions. I would like to thank the editor Aloy for helping me read and modify the text many times. I would also like to thank the book friends in the group. I hope that in the future, I will post fewer awkward pictures and discuss the plot more. The final version you see is far from perfect, but it is close to my own limit. The shortcomings left are indeed impossible to optimize. For example, some readers said that the frequent switching of the protagonist makes it difficult to immerse in the story. In fact, version 3 tried a long single line, but the biggest golden finger and time management points were not reflected. For example, some readers said that Kunlun Mirror requires the protagonist's help and backstabs, which is disgusting. In fact, version 5 found that if there is no backstab, the problem of the girl falls in love with the mask cannot be solved. That's about it. Chapter 67. The competition is come in, the immortal sword ranking. Looking back on this trip away from the palace, his harvest was very fruitful. First, he skipped the 20 to 30 years of hard work of refining ki and directly filled up his ki, successfully entering the marrow cleansing stage. Secondly, he got the middle volume of 5 Thunders Orthodoxy, the Great Extinction Light of the 5 Elements, the Divine Fire Cover, the Heaven-Turning Seal, and 2 9th-level Flying Swords. Not to mention the 2 Flying Swords for now. After all, they were only 9th level, nothing surprising, so Luo Yan took them to the Fanshan market next door and secretly sold them for spirit stones. After the harvest was classified, Qiu Changtai and Luo Yan became the biggest winners. In addition to 9 Heavens King Wei entry mantra, Qiu Changtai's Thunder Method trump card was strengthened again, and now he has 4 Thunders out of 10 Thunders. He is getting further and further on the road to becoming the King of Thunder and Lightning. Luo Yan originally had the worst combat power, but after getting the Great Extinction Light of the 5 Elements, he immediately turned over. In addition to the 5 Elements Extinction Light, there is also that 10th rank magical Turning Heaven Seal borrowed by Miss Shi. Whoever he sees will be smashed, his forehead will burst, and his soul will return to heaven. There are also Spoils of War, the 10th rank magical Divine Fire Cover, which can defend oneself and trap and refine the enemy. It is an integrated attack and defenser, and has infinite uses. As for the large amount of spiritual stones obtained after selling 2 9th rank flying swords, and how many elixirs and talismans were purchased with this spiritual stone, naturally, there is no need to mention it. Ling Yunpo, for some reason, did not participate in the trip to the palace, so he did not get any benefits. Today, the sword immortal boy only has the Kingping sword and the Lizi sword, 2 10th rank immortal swords, which are slightly shabby in comparison. However, the next step is to wash the marrow and cut the meridians, which will greatly enhance the body's bones, so the sword immortal's own strength will also enter a period of rapid development. In addition, Ling Yunpo can also raise the sword with his body, put the Kingping sword into his spine, and slowly nourish it with his own flesh and blood, making it his natal sword. And, there is an additional big move of body and sword as one, let's not talk about it for now. Now, among the 3 roots, the disadvantages of Shushan Ling Yunpo without the support of the master have finally begun to gradually show up. Luo Yan was contemplating the 5 Elements Extinction Divine Light behind closed doors. After initially refining the Yuan Tsugang Ki, he reloaded the game to Shushan Ling Yunpo and continued to practice sword with his senior sister. Since there is no master to guide, he can only squeeze as many experience points as possible from Anzesu, who is at the Wafu level. Anzesu was a little surprised and found that junior brother Ling's swordsmanship seemed to have made great progress recently. In other words, it is no longer at the level that can be achieved at the ki refining level. She carefully raised her cultivation to the level of Shisui level, but found that Ling Yunpo still took it steadily. Junior brother. Anzesu finally stopped her sword and asked hesitantly, "Are you?" "That's right." Ling Yunpo didn't intend to hide it from her, so he put the Kingping sword into his body and summoned it again. "I had a strange encounter the day before yesterday, and I made a breakthrough. Now I have entered the marrow cleansing stage." Anzesu was stunned for a moment, then she covered her mouth with her slender hand in disbelief, her pretty eyes red, and she was so excited that she shed tears. Ling Yunpo was speechless when he saw it. How did you suddenly break through?" Anzesu wiped her tears fiercely and tried to smile. "It's okay, senior sister is just too happy. If your master was here, he would be very happy too." Seeing her burst into laughter, Ling Yunpo felt relieved and puzzled. What made him relieved was that senior sister really didn't ask what strange encounter at all, so his carefully woven excuse was useless. What puzzled him was why she was crying. Fortunately, Anzesu did not keep him in suspense. She just wiped her tears and said with a smile, "Junior brother Lin, do you know? The Shushan sword competition is about to begin." "Another sword competition," Ling Yunpo complained in his heart. "You Shushan sword immortals fight and kill all day long, and your fellow disciples often kill each other. No wonder you can't beat Kunlun in these years. All the elite disciples have been defeated in internal fighting." As if he could see what he was thinking, Anzesu smiled and said, "This sword duel is not a private duel as in the past, but a formal disciple competition of the Shushan sect. The sword duel at the foundation building stage requires disciples who have at least the cultivation level of the marrow washing stage and possess a natal sword to participate. Each duel will be held in a special venue, with venue restrictions to protect lives, and high-level elders to watch over them, so there will be no danger to their lives. In addition, as long as the final sword duel ranking can be on the Immortal Sword ranking, you can enter the Shushan Demon Locking Tower to participate in the trial after the sword duel is over. The Shushan Demon Locking Tower is usually opened once every 2 decades. There are demons lurking inside, and the risk is extremely high, but there are also many benefits. Take the disciples at the marrow washing stage as an example. There is a place in the tower called the Blood Pool. Bathing in it for 3 days and 3 nights can greatly improve your roots, remove impurities, and speed up the progress of marrow washing and meridian cutting. Senior Sister originally thought that no matter how hard you practiced, you would never be able to catch up with the opening of the Demon Locking Tower this time, but you didn't expect to break through by chance. Maybe it was really the blessing of the Master. Speaking of the Master, she couldn't help but blushing, tears welling up in her eyes, looking very pretty and charming. What do you mean by Master's blessing? Ling Yunpo said with a sour tone, Sister Anne, don't talk about Master as if he is already in heaven, it's too unlucky. Besides, he is still in seclusion now, how can he bless me? I, Ling Yunpo, can be where I am today, all thanks to my own hard work and self-improvement. Unyielding personality, synchronization value +1. Yes, Sister, you're wrong. Zisu admitted her mistakes and said with a smile, it is indeed my junior brother who has made great efforts. Then, Zisu explained to Ling Yunpo what the Immortal Sword ranking is. The ranking of the Shushan Chief and even the seats is different from that of Kunlin. When Kunlin's disciples arrange the positions at the futons, they also have to consider the potential and qualifications of the disciples. On the Shushan side, it is all done with real swords and guns. The sword immortals are simple and rough, and they don't care about the order of entry. The strongest one below the Jindan level is the first, the second is the second, the third is the third, and so on until the 99th seed, and the 100th last. If you want a seed, you can find that corresponding sword immortal to make an appointment for a seat challenge. This seat challenge is different from a private sword duel. It must be a formal challenge that the challenger can launch under the care of a high-level elder to a sword immortal with a higher ranking on the list, so there are no restrictions or penalties for private sword duels. As long as you win, you can take the opponent's seat. Because of this, whenever it comes to a seat challenge, the top 100 sword immortals are extremely fierce. Anyway, they are watched over by the Union elders, so they have no scruples in the sword duel, and they will do their best to kill without mercy. Otherwise, if they fail to establish their prestige, they will be harassed by endless challenges. Over time, the list of the top 100 sword immortals has a nickname among the Shushan disciples, called the Immortal Sword List. The sword immortals on the list were referred to by their natal swords by the Shushan disciples to show their respect. Speaking of the Immortal Sword List, I remember that I have heard of it before. Ling Yunpo said deliberately. I heard that the chief of this generation of Shushan, the top of the Immortal Sword List, has a sword called Frost Descent. It is said that it is a killer star that only appears once in 100 years, and it cuts people like cutting grass. So everyone is afraid of his name. Those who know him are unwilling to tell it, and those who don't know him dare not ask, so no one knows who he is. It's really strange. It's me. Senior Sister Anne looked resentful, as if she was embarrassed by his teasing. After holding it in for a long time, she said sullenly, alas, according to the rules of this seat challenge, you must be ruthless to establish your authority, and you can't show mercy at all. Over the years, I really have no way. There is really no way. Other people on the Immortal Sword List only use fatal blows when they challenge for seats. As for a certain grass-cutting sword immortal, no matter whether it is a seat challenge or a private sword fight, he will chop off the opponent's natal sword. So except for Xiun Peak, which was so bold recently and came to tease and test us, other peaks usually avoid our King Luo Peak. But to be more specific, this matter cannot be blamed on Senior Sister Anne. After all, the cheap Master Su Jianle has too many hatreds and a bad reputation. Ling Yunpo had seen how powerful it was when he dueled with Xiun Peak last time. If Senior Sister Anne had failed to establish her authority, King Luo Peak would have been besieged today, and the situation would probably be even more miserable. Therefore, he just smiled and said, Senior Sister, what you said is very true. Those people can't win the sword challenge, so they ruin your reputation in private, which is also hateful. Don't let me meet these people. If I meet them in the official competition, I will beat them to death to avenge the slander that Senior Sister has suffered all these years. Zisu laughed when he heard it. This official competition, the first few days are random draws and sword fights. How can it be so easy for you to meet? Only in the last few days will it be your turn to freely choose your opponent and initiate a seat challenge. According to the results of previous competitions, if the strength ranks first in the same period of the marrow washing stage, it can occupy about 70 places on the immortal sword list. You just need to practice swordsmanship well and improve your strength. At the time, whether it is a random draw or a free challenge, you must first defeat a sword fairy on the immortal sword list and get a seat. Then, no matter who challenges you for a seat, you will be ruthless and chop off the opponent's natal sword. Until the people behind you dare not challenge you for a seat, your seat will be stable. Ling Yunpa was speechless. Are you asking me to follow that path of a little swordsman who cuts grass? Okay. He said proudly, since senior sister has such high hopes for me, I will let senior sister take a look. I, Ling Yunpa, will definitely be on the immortal sword ranking this time. Chapter 68. Sharing everything I know, giving me a sudden enlightenment. As mentioned above, the save or load mechanism of Kunlun Mirror follows a certain breakpoint resume rule. For example, in the Shushan line, the time from which you saved and left the game last time is the time you will read next time. Now Qiu Chang Time and Luo Yan have both passed the trial of the Palace of Departure, while Ling Yunpa on the Shushan side is still at the time when the Palace of Departure is about to be opened. On this day, Ling Yunpa had just finished practicing with senior sister and when he saw a sword light suddenly coming from a distance and landing on King Luo Peak. Ling Yunpa took a closer look and found that it was Ling Yulanzan, the senior brother of Jingan Peak, a dog of senior sister. Senior sister An. Lin Yulanzan came hurriedly over and said as soon as he landed, the East China Sea Palace has been opened this morning, and disciples from Kunlun and Penglai have entered the secret realm for trial together. News has come down from the Emma Golden Summit, saying that the three sects are from the same orthodox religion, and we can't fall behind, so we have to open the demon locking tower in advance. I'm afraid the corresponding Shushan fellow disciple competition will also have to be advanced as well. I see. Zisu looked calm, but Lin Yulanzan couldn't control his temper. He turned his head and glared at Ling Yunpa and said, the competition is come in, are you ready? Absolutely safe. Ling Yunpa replied with a sneer. Lin Yulanzan was slightly startled, then he said seriously, since senior sister wants you to participate in the trial of the demon locking tower, then according to the rules of Shushan, you must be on the immortal sword ranking in this sect competition. On the immortal sword ranking, the strong and the weak are clearly divided. Among them, the top one, that is, your senior sister Am, is in a separate level of strength. The second to fourth seats are in one level. The fifth to the 50th seats are in one level. And the 50th seats are in another level. Within the same level, the ranking of seats often changes as the strength is similar. If you are one level higher, your strength will have a crushing advantage, and it will be difficult to win in a sword duel. Lin Yulanzan paused for a moment when he said this, and suddenly said seriously, with your talent in swordsmanship, you should aim for a position below the 5th seat and above the 50th seat. If you end up outside the 50 seats, it will be a shame for King Luo Peak. Zisu interrupted him and said lightly, my peak has a bad reputation, so it doesn't matter whether it's embarrassing or not. Even if you get more than 50 seeds, other peaks will not change their views. I just want junior brother Link to participate in the demon locking tower trial and successfully go to the blood pool for marrow cleansing and meridian cleansing. As for those empty names, it doesn't matter if they are not there. Lin Yulanzan was choked by her and was speechless. He was the eldest brother of the Jingan Peak lineage and was deeply trusted by the master. He usually had the final say in Jingan Peak. In addition, his personality tended to be serious. He always treated his junior brothers and sisters with strict requirements and rough spurring. As for the euphemistic tone and encouraging teaching, it was impossible and he couldn't do it in 10,000 years. Therefore, when he met a senior sister like Zisu who was so protective of her shortcomings that she was unreasonable, he actually felt a little helpless. Fortunately, Ling Yunpa didn't embarrass him for too long. In other words, he didn't intend to let him continue to interact with senior sister Am, so he said, Senior sister, I naturally know what you mean. The so-called seat challenge can be initiated by all low seeds to high seeds. In other words, if I win a certain seed, I must have the strength to defeat everyone under the seed, otherwise even if I win by chance, I will not be able to keep my position in the future. But what senior brother Lin said is also right. Since Master went into seclusion, our King Luo Peak has gone from being in a difficult situation and being perceived to being not easily taken lightly now. Isn't it you, senior sister, who have fought and killed in one sword fight after another? You must know that even if it is a bad reputation, it is still a reputation. The reputation accumulated by King Luo Peak, if this time I lose it in my hands, I will not forgive myself. Unyielding personality, synchronization value +1. He finished speaking passionately, and his tone was also resounding, which made Nzisu's beautiful eyes red, and Lin Yulanzan nodded continuously. The two are actually temporarily intimidated by his spirit and speechless. Unyielding personality, synchronization value +1. Junior brother. After a long while, senior sister said softly, since you have such lofty ambitions, senior sister will certainly not interfere. In that case, let junior brother Lin teach you about the Shushan fellow disciple competition. Ling Yunpo. Wait, I just don't want him to interact with senior sister anymore, not to interact with him. Lin Yulanzan ignored his psychological activities, just clapped his hands and laughed and said, that's great. Since junior brother Ling has lofty ambitions, I will not be stingy with my skills and will definitely teach you everything I know. Without further delay, let's start fencing right away. The so-called fencing is of course just an ordinary flying sword clash, with no special meaning. If the 7 killing swords of King Luo Peak emphasize preemptive strike and only speed can't break, then the Wangxai Bang sword of Jingan Peak emphasizes taking advantage of the situation and every change. There are thousands of sword ways, and there is no absolute distinction between the superior and the inferior. In the end, it still depends on the hard power of the sword immortal himself. Because it was necessary to simulate the Shushan competition, this time Lin Yulanzan used his cultivation to control the Kaiyu sword with his palace-level true essence. Each strike was powerful and heavy, making it difficult for Ling Yunpo to resist and repeatedly being pushed to the limit. Nzisu watched silently. Whenever Ling Yunpo could not hold on, she would put her hand on the hilt of the frost sword, which made Lin Yulanzan sweat coldly and his hair stand on end. Well, after entering the marrow cleansing stage, I have a rough idea of your strength level. Feeling that the chance of being killed would increase if he continued to fight, Lin Yulanzan immediately stopped and put away the Kaiyu sword, saying seriously, it's just as I expected. As long as you can perform stably during the Shushan competition, you'll have no problem getting more than 50 seeds. After hearing Lin Yulanzan's judgment, Nzisu agreed with a smile. Indeed, with your ability, you really don't have to worry too much. Senior sister just hopes that you don't put pressure on yourself. The reputation of King Luo Peak is not important. What's important is whether you can improve your swordsmanship and enhance your cultivation. Indeed. Lin Yulanzan said with a straight face, the so-called knowing yourself and knowing your enemy, in addition to your own strength level, you also need to understand the strength of other competitors. Now on the Immortal Sword ranking, only the top 4 seeds can be said to be able to beat you. Let's start with these top 4 seeds. The top of the list, Xuanjiang, is your senior sister Anne. Since she entered the sect, she has never lost a single battle, whether in a seat challenge or in a private sword fight. You are also very clear about her fighting style and strength level, so I don't need to say more. The second place on the list, Kan Tai, is the senior brother Juan Fan Hai of Wanglong Peak. This person was born into a family of heroes, but he is not reckless and ruthless. Instead, he is known for his calm personality and rich experience. His qualities in all aspects are far better than yours. The third place on the list, Kai Yu, is me. Let's not talk about it for now. The fourth place, Sui Yu, is the senior sister Yuan Jinu of Kuzu Peak. She was born in the Yuan family of Longxis, a family of sword immortals. She has many difficult sword controlling secrets. Even I am not very sure about her, let alone you. Lin Yulanzan spoke frankly, but noticed the gloomy face of Nzisu next to him, and quickly added, of course, I mean that you are not their opponent now. In time, with your talent in swordsmanship, your achievements will not be too bad. In short, if you're accidentally drawn into the top 4 places in the draw of this Shushan competition, you can just admit defeat directly, and there is no need to hold on. The Shushan competition is divided into 2 parts. The first half is the promotion elimination round, where duels are randomly arranged by drawing lots. If you lose, you will be demoted, and if you win, you will advance. In the end, the top 100 disciples who advance will be decided, and they will be included in the Immortal Sword ranking according to the results of the sword competition. The second half is the challenge and ranking. All disciples can choose to challenge opponents with higher seeds than themselves on the challenge list. If you win, you'll take the seed, and there is no punishment for losing. In other words, except for the top 4 seeds, you must keep in mind the corresponding fighting styles and sword-wielding habits of the remaining 96 opponents on the Immortal Sword ranking. Because, in the upcoming Shushan competition, you may run into them during the draw, or you may be picked out by them and killed during the challenge and ranking. Chapter 69. Shushan Demon Tower, clues emerge next. It was the process of cramming. Sister Anne's strength was certainly not weak, but she was not very good at teaching. The reason was that she was too strong, and she did not need to and would not understand the fighting styles and swordsmanship habits of other swordsmen. What was the point of understanding those things? Would you pay attention to the differences between every hand under your feet? On the contrary, Lin Yulanzhen's main practice of the Wangxibang sword was originally a sword art that emphasized strategic changes, so he had a very complete grasp of the information of various swordsmen. Not only that, senior brother Lin himself was also a swordsmanship genius, proficient in the main swordsmanship of various sects. Whenever he talked about a sword immortal on the immortal sword list, he could not only hit the nail on the head and describe the opponent's swordsmanship style incisively, but also instantly reveal the flaws, even fatal flaws. In addition, Lin Yulanzhen could also simulate the opponent's swordsmanship style in actual combat, so that Ling Yunpo could quickly apply what he learned and adapt to it while learning the knowledge. No wonder Sister Anne asked him to teach her. However, the simulated swordplay style will eventually be different from the actual combat. After all, the sword skills are impossible to replicate. So Lin Yulanzhen did not stay here for too long, but just explained the information of the hundreds of sword immortals on the immortal sword list, and then simulated the corresponding swordplay one by one, so that Ling Yunpo could initially adapt. Who likes to fight head-on, who was used to using dirty tricks, so he got familiar with it. After doing this, Lin Yulanzhen hurriedly said goodbye again and left. Because he had smelt something bad, it seemed that if he continued to beat up a certain junior brother in the name of practice, he would be beaten up by a certain senior sister. After Lin Yulanzhen left, Ling Yunpo and Zisu continued to practice sword for several hours. During the break, Ling Yunpo asked tentatively, "Senior sister, Lin Yulanzhen, what is your relationship with senior brother Lin?" Zisu thought seriously for a while. "I defeated him." Ling Yunpo, "Senior sister, have you ever broken his natal sword?" "That's not the case." Zisu recalled, "He was quite polite at the time, so I didn't use any heavy hands." "Oh, I think he seems to be very familiar with senior sister." Ling Yunpo probed again. "You've also heard him say that the strength of the top 4 seats in the immortal sword is at the same level." Zisu said with a smile, "Plus, they are all arrogant, so it's normal for them to know each other." No. Lin Yulanzhen was talking about the 2nd to 4th seats being at the same level, and you, Zisu, are in a different level, but Ling Yunpo also knew that this senior sister was used to trying to eliminate the fact that she was stronger than her junior brother, so he changed the subject and asked, "I've met Lin Yulanzhen, what kind of people are the other 2 seeds?" Zisu pondered and said, "Julanfanhai was a hero in the martial arts world in his early years, and he even achieved the position of leader of the martial arts world. Later, because he offended some enemy, his whole family was killed, so he came to Ashushan to practice swordsmanship. About 10 years ago, he went down the mountain to wipe out his enemies. After he got his revenge and returned to the mountain, he became a lot more depressed and usually lazy." "I see." Ling Yunpo took note secretly. "As for Yuanqinyu, she is a woman with a very proud temperament." Zisu continued. "The Longsiguan family has been a swordsman for generations, and Yuanqinyu is the strongest of the younger generation of the Yuan family. Although she usually smiles and pretends to be innocent, she actually has a bad temper and loves to hold grudges. Junior brother, if you meet this Yuanqinyu in the future, it is best to keep a distance from her." "I understand, senior sister is jealous." Ling Yunpo immediately nodded in agreement. "Senior sister, don't worry, I won't have any entanglement with Yuanqinyu. Senior sister is not interfering with your interactions with others." Zisu said unnaturally, "I'm just worried that you will be cheated outside." "I understand, I'm afraid that I will be cheated by a bad woman." Ling Yunpo thought for a while, and then asked, "What kind of place is the Demon Locking Tower?" "The Demon Locking Tower," Zisu said with a smile, "it is an ancient inverted tower located under the cliff of Lidenping, nearly 1,000 feet underground. It was used by the ancient Chanzhou to imprison demons. The so-called inverted tower is shaped like a normal pagoda upside down, big on the top and small on the bottom. The deeper you go, the fewer demons are imprisoned, but the more powerful they are. It is said that the demons in the deepest part of the demon locking tower even have the strength of the Daluo Jingxian level." "I don't know if it's true or not." Ling Yunpo was stunned for a moment, and suddenly reacted. "One is 3.3 meters, nearly 1,000, isn't it 3,000 meters underground? Could it be that the fragments of the sky repairing stone I am looking for are in the deepest part of this demon locking tower?" "Sister," Ling Yunpo said with a smile, "tell me more about this demon locking tower." Zisu was a little surprised, but did not doubt anything, just continued. The history of this demon-locking tower is said to be longer than the history of the ancient Xianzhou, and it should have been built in the era of Xi and Nui. The tower is nearly 1,000 feet deep, with a total of 100 floors, and each floor is 10 feet high. There is no open area inside, but it is isolated into various large and small spaces. In ancient times, cultivators went outside to catch demons and brought them back, and then put them in the demon-locking tower. The demon-locking tower will automatically teleport these demons to the corresponding floors according to their strength. Ling Yunpo pondered for a moment and asked, "Then the existence of this demon-locking tower is just to imprison demons?" "Of course not." Zisu said in a low voice, "The demon-locking tower has many uses. For example, one of the blood pools is of great benefit to the marrow-washing cultivators. It is said that it is infused with dragon blood. And this dragon blood comes from a dragon imprisoned somewhere in the tower. In fact, many of our Shushan's products come from the demon-locking tower. For example, the flying swords in the sword pool are partly captured from the outside world, partly from trade with Yu King Temple, and partly from the sword slaves in the demon-locking tower." "Sword slaves?" Ling Yunpo asked in surprise. "It seems to be a demon similar to a blacksmith." Zisu said uncertainly. "Sword slaves are a kind of demon with a gentle personality." Kunlun Mirror suddenly said in the Sea of Consciousness, "They feed on metals and minerals, and are especially good at forging swords." "I see." Ling Yunpo keenly noticed the key point. "In other words, our Shushan Shangqing sect actually maintains regular exchanges and communication with many demons in the demon-locking tower, right? Who in the sect is responsible for executing these things?" "It should be the responsibility of Jintan's Hinran, I don't know." Zisu replied, "After all, entering the demon-locking tower is dangerous, and I dare not let the outer disciples do it." "Sure enough." Ling Yunpo sank into thought. "In other words, Shushan has the ability to enter the demon-locking tower at any time. I have to find a way to figure it out." Chapter 70 Return to Kunlun and meet Songhe again. The Shushan competition is coming soon. Ling Yunpo and his senior sister practiced swordsmanship for several days, and then returned to Kunlun to play Qiu Chang's Haiyan. After returning from the secret realm of the Li Palace, Qiu Chang's Haiyan's junior brothers and sisters all gained a lot. Zhu Yingyan ranked among the top in the clearance, so he got a powerful Taoist method from the Li Palace, called Tai Su Yuan Jin Xixuan D8 Wang Ming Fire, which is said to be as powerful as the Five Thunders. Every morning, at sunrise, junior sisters Yu would sit on the top of the Golden Ridge with her knees hugged on time to practice this method. When the sun rises over the sea of clouds, she opens her mouth to breathe, swallows the precious sun energy, turns it into sun energy, closes her eyes and swallows her saliva, and pours it into her limbs and 5 internal organs. After a long time, the sun energy refines the scenery, and it is reflected in the abdomen. It is bright and brilliant, illuminating the whole body, making Zhu Yingyan look like a little golden man painted with fluorescent powder, with jade skin and shiny muscles. As for the other junior brothers and sisters, they also successfully entered the marrow washing. Yuanzhen took the flying sword and held it in his arms so that no one could see it. Yan Zichui got a book, but it was not a Taoist book, but a magic weapon in the shape of a scroll, so he studied it all night. Chen Xin and Thong Tianhua chose elixirs and planned to go back to practice well and practice Qi. Only the little girl Jian Qingnan did not want a flying sword magic weapon, but chose a book Zhao Ye Zichuan's Xinxuan Xinjing. It was probably the intention of the King Zhao Jian family to let her continue to develop in the direction of Qishushu. Of course, the biggest gainer must be Qiu Chang's Haiyan. Not to mention Luoyan, just the middle volume of the Five Thunders Orthodox method, which contains 3 kinds of thunder magic secrets, has raised his understanding of thunder magic by analogy. The light of the jade pivot thunder is green and its color is red, a ball of lightning the size of a palm. In contrast, the Xiandu thunder is gray-red in color and its shape is unstable, but its flying speed is much faster than the jade pivot thunder. It is like lightning when it is shot out, pop. Very fast. The entire body of the Arctic thunder is pure black, and it is also a group of condensed lightning. It looks deep and uncertain, and it is chilling when you get close. When it hits the rock wall, it is very powerful, and frost and cracks will form around it. It obviously has its own low-temperature refrigeration and preservation effect, and it is worthy at being a special attack on dragon aquatic products. As for Qi thunder, it has no color. It is just an almost transparent thunderball in the hand, and its attack range is very wide. Because its power is not concentrated enough, its killing ability to a single unit is not as good as the other three thunders, but it is a unique one in moving mountains and filling the sea and destroying the environment. In addition to the thunder method, Kyo-chain Tian, who was promoted to the marrow washing stage, obtained the second derivative Taoist method from the Nine Heavens King Wei entering the real words, namely Shao Fu Shangyang Sword Ki. The method of stimulating is a bit like the Six Meridians Divine Sword, which is to compress the pure true Ki in the meridians, sharpen it, and then shoot it out from the Shangyang point of the index finger to kill the enemy. This sword energy is colorless and invisible, and it is always successful in sneak attacks and assassinations. The only drawback is that the attack power is not too high, compared to the thunder method. Not to mention the defensive magic weapons such as the divine fire cover, even if the opponent uses a flying sword to block it, it can easily block the Shao Fu Shangyang Sword Ki. It is said that a Yuning elder of Kunlin, the disciple of the previous headmaster and the senior brother of the current Ziwei headmaster, spent a lot of effort to finally optimize this Shao Fu Shangyang Sword Ki and renamed it Tai King Chuan Men Invisible Sword Ki. While retaining its concealment, it greatly improves the killing effect of the sword ki. Kyo-chain Tian also specially inquired about it, and then he knew that the elder listed the invisible sword ki as a secret Taoist method. In other words, it will only be taught to direct disciples. As the direct disciple of Ziwei headmaster, he certainly couldn't switch to this uncle, so he had to give up. In order to master the thunder method as soon as possible, and also to maintain the high synchronization value of the character setting, Kyo-chain Tian still maintained the rhythm of going out for training once every 10 days. The rest of the time he stayed in the cave, giving lectures, refining ki and washing marrow, and studying the general principles of the Five Thunders law. That afternoon, he once again brought several outer disciples back from hard training outside to the Uxu Peak Steward Hall to hand in the task. The outer disciples received the task rewards and were grateful to the chief Kyo, thanking him in various ways, and then left reluctantly. Kyo-chain Tian had long been accustomed to the flattery and thanks from his fellow disciples at Kunlin, so he just continued to calmly flick through the task list. Suddenly, he noticed a figure coming to the counter and whispering something to the Kunlin stewards. Well, it seems to be Songhee. Kyo-chain Tian immediately remembered that this was the second senior brother Songhee, who was second only to the chief Zhu-chain King among the foundation-building disciples taught by Ziwei sect master. However, the rules of Kunlin are different from those of Shushan. Only the chief is selected according to strength, while the rest of the disciples are ranked according to qualifications. Whether it is Ziwei sect master or the disciples of other Yuning elders, this is the rule. Therefore, compared to the brilliant chief Zhu-chain King, this second senior brother Songhee was much more low-key. He was just thinking about this when he saw Songhee suddenly raised his head and greeted him with a smile. Junior brother Kyo, are you back from training outside again? Kyo-chain Tian keenly noticed that Songhee's eyes stayed on the Chi-light-splitting sword behind him for a moment. The Chi-light-splitting sword was held by the Kunlun masters of all generations, but every time Kyo-chain Tian went out for training, he was given by the Ziwei master to protect him, which shows how important it is in the master's mind. Yes. Kyo-chain Tian nodded. Senior brother Song, what is this? Oh, I'm here to send the relics of my two junior brothers. Songhee stared into his eyes and said slowly. Zhao Wenqing and Qie Yuan, although they were not the chiefs, were also disciples of the Ziwei master, but they mysteriously disappeared in the secret realm of the Li Palace and never returned until the palace gates were closed. The trial of the Li Palace will not kill people. If they are killed by the trial prohibition, they will only be teleported out when they are seriously injured and dying. However, if they are killed by other trial participants in the secret realm, there is no such protection mechanism. Zhao Wenqing and Qie Yuan did not return before the palace was closed, so they were most likely killed in the palace. It is just unknown whether the murderer was a disciple of Kunlin, a disciple of Penglai, or poison, a demon in the heart, or an accidental injury in battle, such as the aftermath of a large-scale lethal Taoist method. In the world of cultivation, there are simply endless ways to kill people. The head of Ziwei used numerology to calculate for a while, but could not calculate any results, so he could only set off to return to Kunlin. After returning to Kunlin, the two are judged dead by Tai King's sect. As for the property left in their cave, it is natural to pack it up and send it to their family in the secular world. Alas! Kyo-chain Tian sighed. The secret realm of the palace, the legacy of the sect, should have been a smooth road. How could such a thing happen? Seeing that he did not reveal any flaws, Songhee retracted his gaze and said lightly, "The path of cultivation is against the will of heaven, how can there be a smooth road?" Any difficulties and obstacles require great perseverance and wisdom to break through. If you can't break through, you will fall, and there is no reason to talk about it. Kyo Chang-Tian smiled gently. That's what my senior brother taught you. Song-He nodded slightly, patted his shoulder in encouragement, and then left with his hands behind his back. Kyo Chang-Tian watched his back as he left the Deacon Hall, and quickly said in his heart, "A Jin, he patted my shoulder just now. Did he do anything to me?" "That's not the case," Kunlun Mirror replied. "But..." Its voice paused, and then said, "Your senior brother Song-He does have a deep hidden hostility towards you. Well, it's more appropriate to say malice." Chapter 71. Provoking Sisters Yu to Rescue Yaksu Palace, Lecture Room. After listening to the lecture, the disciples were about to get up from the cushions when they heard Ziwili's sect leader suddenly say, "Kyo Chang-Tian, stay." So the brothers and sisters exchanged glances quickly, and their eyes fell on Zhu Yingyan. Zhu Yingyan frowned slightly, but did not say anything, just stood up and left indifferently. According to the previous examples, if Ziwili's sect leader asked to keep someone, he would often keep Kyo Chang-Tian with her, but this did not mean anything. What if he did not keep her this time? Although Zhu Yingyan had a strong personality, she was not bored enough to compete for the sect leader's attention. After all, she was not a child. She left freely, and the others looked at each other and left one after another. So only Kyo Chang-Tian was left in the lecture room. On the first day of next month, the Shushan Demon Locking Tower will be opened. Master Ziwili closed his eyes and said leisurely, "There is a blood pool in it. Bathing in the blood pool can speed up the marrow cleansing, strengthen the bones, and replenish the blood. It will be of great benefit to you. On the 29th of this month, in the middle of the night, you come here alone, and I will arrange for a real person to send you to Shushan. Don't let others know about this, especially your junior sister, do you understand?" "Wow, the master is going to give me some special treatment." Kyo Chang-Tian quickly lowered his head and said, "Disciple knows." As soon as he finished speaking, Master Ziwili hit him on the head with the handle of the whisk, not too lightly or too heavily. "Don't think that your master is partial to you. It's just that my Kunlun Tai King sect and the Shushan Shang King sect do not have close contacts. This time, I let you went to the Demon Locking Tower, but I used the favor that the Shushan sect master owed me, so I managed to get a place. If your junior sister knew, her obsession would surely deepen. At the time, your master will only ask you." Kyo Chang-Tian said solemnly. "Disciple understands master's good intentions. After leaving this room, I will never reveal a word." Said Master Ziwili nodded, and sighed softly. His tone was like melancholy, like advice. "Chang-Tian, you have an unparalleled talent of clear Tao heart. Most of the difficulties and obstacles on the road of cultivation will become invisible to you. However, those crises that cannot be eliminated will be even more dangerous to you. The 3 disasters and 9 calamities are inevitable. Only by trembling with fear and treading on thin ice can you have a glimmer of hope. Do you remember?" Disciple remembers. Kyo Chang-Tian said seriously. "Very good." Ziwili's sect leader nodded slightly. "Go." Kyo Chang-Tian bowed and then stood up and left. After an unknown amount of time, a long, helpless sigh was heard again from the 9-colored lotus platform behind that golden hook and jade curtain. With a profound cultivation and having been in charge of Kunlun for many years, most things in this world can no longer stump Ziwili's sect leader. However, he has calculated the future destiny of this direct disciple thousands of times, but he still can't figure it out. It seems to be concealed by someone. However, who else in this world can conceal the destiny of Ziwili's sect leader? If it is an immortal, it is easy to say, but what if it is the way of heaven? Kyo Chang-Tian returned to Jinlang and saw Zhu Yingyan in white clothes waiting for him at the entrance of the cave. Did she know? Impossible. I came out of the lecture room, but I haven't said a word to her yet. Brother. Seeing that he finally came back, Zhu Yingyan said seriously, "I have cultivated my great light flame to a small degree. I wonder how your 5 Thunders orthodox method is doing." Another competition. Kyo Chang-Tian was almost speechless. After the swordsmanship competition, they competed in Taoism, and after the Taoism competition, they competed in Taoism. It's endless, right? The 5 Thunders orthodox method is extremely powerful and cannot be used without permission. He found a reason to refuse. No problem. Zhu Yingyan was prepared. From Kunlun to the west, in the direction of the extreme west, there is a narrow valley, an uninhabited area, which the locals call Kongling Chuangwen. You can practice Taoism to your heart's content. Qiu Changtian was a little surprised. Junior sister's Yu was obviously prepared. If he refused again, this silly junior sister would think that he looked down on her, so he could only deal with her as soon as possible. The two flew up on their swords and went west. The entrance to the extreme west is blocked by a large number of barren mountains, also known as Congling. Every year, except for summer, the mountains are closed by heavy snow and no one lives there. Arriving at the entrance of the Congling mountain mentioned by junior sisters Yu, Qiu Changtian saw winding mountains on both sides and a huge gap in the middle, which seemed to be forcibly opened by a large number of Taoist magic. After walking along the gap of the mountain for dozens of miles, he saw that the corridor gradually narrowed. Is it here? Zhu Yingyan stopped the sword light and asked. Yes. Qiu Changtian nodded reservedly. Zhu Yingyan looked at the rock wall in the distance and chanted, floating in the 9 mornings, shining thousands of feet. In an instant, a bright light burst out from her mouth and nose, turning into a large amount of thick flame clouds, falling on the rock wall, and instantly burning and melting. In just a few breaths, the mountain rocks and soil in front of her, which were dozens of meters wide and nearly 100 meters deep, were all burned to ashes by the great light fire. Qiu Changtian. If it was the Jade Pivot Thunder, it would not be possible to explode to such a large area, and it would not be possible to burn all the soil and rocks. Junior sisters you have been planning this for a long time. Looking at his own achievements in front of him, Zhu Yingyan was also somewhat proud, so he looked at Qiu Changtian with a sidelong glance. Qiu Changtian sighed for a moment, and began to chant the spell, sounding the 3 realms, Divine Thunder, Break. Translucent lightning emerged from his hand and quietly shot towards the mountain wall in front. A huge explosion that shook the earth almost deafened Zhu Yingyan's ears. When the smoke and dust cleared, the two people sighed past through the mess on the ground and saw that the place in front of them that was originally the mountain wall was now empty. Not only that, but also the rocks and soil within a radius of more than 100 meters around were all razed to the ground. This was the result of Qiu Changtian's deliberate control of the power. As for the traces of Zhu Yingyan's previous burning with the great light fire, they had long been covered by the Qi Thunder, leaving no trace. Invincible setting, synchronization value +1 invincible setting, synchronization value +1 invincible setting, synchronization value +1, Kunlun Mirror directly gave 10 consecutive prompts. Zhu Yingyan. She looked at the scene in silence, with a bewildered expression, and remained silent for a long time. No matter how powerful the Taoism is, it is only an external method after all. After brushing another wave of invincible synchronization values, Qiu Changtian was satisfied and said lightly, we Immortal cultivators, after all, still have to look at the realm of cultivation. If it is a comparison of the realm of cultivation, I can defeat my senior brother. Zhu Yingyan said softly, with a trance expression, blurred eyes, and even a hint of sadness in her tone. Not good. Junior sister's Taoism heart is shaken. She has gone astray. Seeing the demonic energy on Zhu Yingyan's face becoming more and more serious, Qiu Changtian hurriedly stepped forward, grabbed her hands tightly, and said in a deep voice, so what? Are you destined to fall behind for the rest of your life if you lose for a while? Zhu Yingyan, don't let me look down on you. My junior sister, Qiu Changtian, is a self-reliant junior sister who is always thinking about surpassing me, not a rubbish who complains about the world and degenerates after losing a game temporarily. This voice was deafening, causing Zhu Yingyan to shudder suddenly, and her 7 orifice exquisite heart, which was dim due to the violent fluctuations of emotions, quickly started to work again. Seeing the demonic energy on her face quickly recede and her expression became clear, Qiu Changtian just breathed a sigh of relief, and Zhu Yingyan grabbed the collar of his robe and forced him to lower his head. Her flushed face was so close to Qiu Changtian that Qiu Changtian could even see from a close distance that her bright pupils seemed to be overflowing with anger that was about to explode. Who did you just call trash? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 72. Do Hard Floor, What to Do. Zhu Yingyan was a very smart person after all. Although she lost her composure for a short time because of being called trash, she quickly reacted. Senior brother scolded her at the time, but in fact, he was trying to save her. If it weren't for the deafening word trash that freed her from the state of madness in time, she would have lost her Tao heart and her whole body cultivation would have been destroyed. So junior sisters, you could only honestly apologize to senior brother, thank him sincerely, and then follow him back to Kunlun Mountains. Qiu Changtai brought Zhu Yingyan to Yuxiu Palace and hurriedly explained the matter to Ziwei sect leader. The startled Ziwei sect leader immediately got off the 9-colored lotus platform, pointed the whisk at Zhu Yingyan's eyebrows, and carefully explored her sea of consciousness. No trace of the lurking demon was found. Taoist obsession can be divided into 2 types according to the reasons. The first is a flaw in the heart of Taoism, such as love, hate, anger, and ignorance, and emotional fluctuations, which can cause the mind to lose control and be seen by the outer demon. The heart of Taoism will be directly conquered and the person will die on the spot. The second is the lurking inner demon. If your heart of Taoism has no flaws for the time being, but it is targeted by the outer demon, it will secretly reside in your deepest and most shameful thoughts, turning into an inner demon, waiting for a suitable opportunity. Until one day, you suddenly encounter something, your heart is shaken, and a flaw occurs. Or you encounter a life and death situation, such as a heavenly tribulation, and the parasitic demon will suddenly attacking from both inside and outside, and the danger will increase greatly. The most common situation encountered by Taoists is actually the second situation. After all, the flaws in the heart of Taoism can be made up, but the parasitic inner demon is absolutely difficult to detect. One of the reasons why the clear heart of Taoism is a peerless gift is that the heart is like a mirror, which makes the inner demon have nowhere to hide. Although the headmaster of Ziwei had briefly explored Zhu Yingyan's sea of consciousness and found no traces of the inner demon lurking, it did not mean that it was foolproof. So he invited several Yuning elders to use various magic weapons and supernatural powers to search Zhu Yingyan's sea of consciousness again, inside and outside, and carefully searched several times, not daring to be careless. At present, it seems that the possibility of the inner demon lurking is not great. The elder who eliminated crimes in the criminal law hall took back the heart-searching mirror and said in a deep voice, "The 7-aperture exquisite heart has a strong resistance to the inner demon. If the outer demon lurks in it, it will be like boiling oil in a raging fire, and there is no place to stay. This possibility can basically be ruled out." But regardless of this, Zhu Yingyan's Tao heart has a lot of flaws, especially the 2 levels of anger and stupidity. You must know that if you can't get what you want, and you are still angry, it is the biggest taboo in cultivation. That's enough. The headmaster of Ziwei waved his whisk and interrupted him. "Eliminate crimes, I have my own ideas on this matter." Well. Several elders looked at each other and said goodbye to the headmaster and left. Zhu Yingyan turned pale and said nothing. Qiu Changtai stood by, solemn and silent. After a while, the chief Zhu Chang King also rushed over after hearing the news. "Grandfather." Zhu Yingyan bowed to him. Zhu Chang King did not look at her, but asked the head of Ziwei sect, "Master, Yingyan and Changtai's Taoist couple marriage, do you think it can be advanced?" Zhu Yingyan's face immediately turned pale after hearing this. Zhu Chang King's status in the secular family is the uncle of Zhu Yingyan's grandfather. Since her great-grandfather has passed away, Zhu Chang King can barely be considered her direct elder and can decide her marriage on behalf of the Tianan Zhu family. Ziwei sect master pondered for a moment and was about to speak, but Qiu Changtai stepped forward and said resolutely, "Master, senior brother Zhu. Junior sister's Dao heart has a flaw now. As the chief senior brother, I can't shirk my responsibility." After saying that, he lifted his robe and wanted to kneel down to apologize. Zhu Chang King quickly supported him, saying it's not that bad repeatedly, and his expression was full of shame. After all, in Zhu Chang King's view, Zhu Yingyan's situation was completely her own fault. It's okay for you to be strong-willed, but you can't allow others to be stronger than you. You want to win but can't, and as a result, your Dao heart is full of holes. Can you still push the responsibility to others? Qiu Changtai didn't insist, but just said, "As her senior brother, I will naturally do my best to help her make up for the flaws in her Dao heart. Whether we become Dao partners or not, this will never change." His tone was sonorous and powerful, and Zhu Chang King and Ziwei sect master were moved at the same time. You know, if they become Taoist couples in advance, it means that Qiu Changtai will become the son-in-law of the Zhu family of Tianan, and thus gain the full support of this old family of immortal cultivation. The price is also clear. Helping Zhu Yingyan to make up for the flaws in his Taoist heart will definitely delay his own cultivation. So it is actually an exchange of interests for both sides. Now Qiu Changtime has taken the initiative to express that he does not need to become Taoist couples in advance, that is, he does not need the Zhu family of Tianan to fulfill his promise in advance, and he is willing to help Zhu Yingyan. This is so generous that even Zhu Yingyan bit her lower lip and could not say anything. If Qiu Changtime did not express his position, even if she did not have the confidence to convince Zhu Changqing, she would at least have the courage to protest. As a result, her senior brother took the initiative to stand up for her and prevent the Taoist couple from getting engaged in advance. She could not agree with it, otherwise it would be too heartless. Zhu Changqing was silent for a long time, then he sighed and said, "It is okay not to fulfill the engagement in advance. But from today on, all the treatment of junior brother Qiu in the Zhu family of Tianan will be provided according to the standards of Taoist couple Yingyan." "That's very good." Ziwei headmaster smiled and twirled his beard. Zhu Changqing meant that even if you don't want to get married in advance, the resources that should be given to Qiu Changtime should still be given in advance, and our Tianan Zhu family also has to save face. Zhu Yingyan was thinking about something else. Since everything is based on the standards of a Taoist couple, doesn't that mean that when I go home to visit in the future, my senior brother will have to accompany me? In the Zhu family's ancestral worship ceremony, my senior brother will also have to recite the sacrificial words with me as a husband. Even when we stay overnight in the clan, maybe we will have to follow the standards of a husband and wife, and only give us one room, a big bed, and a set of bedding. Isn't this although not husband and wife in name, but husband and wife in reality? Thinking of this, she felt more and more embarrassed. But this matter was ultimately caused by her failure to stick to her Taoist heart and could only rely on her senior brother for help. If she made more requests, it would be really ungrateful. Therefore, Zhu Yingyan could only remain silent, neither nodding nor objecting, and put on a stubborn attitude. As for Ziwei's sect master and Zhu Changqing, they naturally ignored her behavior and settled the matter in a few words. After leaving Yuxu Palace, Zhu Yingyan calmed down his anger and asked helplessly, "So, how do you plan to help me stabilize my Dou heart? Or rather, you already know that the reason why my Dou heart has a flaw is because I have been lacking behind you for a long time. So, do you have any way to make me stronger quickly?" "I have my own way," Qiu Changtime said calmly, "you just need to listen to me." Zhu Yingyan took a deep breath, obviously knowing that this matter was related to his life, and he couldn't be petty at will, so he could only nod and say, "Okay. Yeah." Qiu Changtime nodded majestically and said, let's go back to Jinlan to prepare." "Prepared for what?" Zhu Yingyan drove the sword light. "Prepare to overthrow the Kunlun fellow," Qiu Changtime said lightly. Chapter 73. The proud hat needs to be stroked. As we all know, Shuanshan King sect is a somewhat shady sect. Since sword immortals rely heavily on breakthroughs and epiphanies between life and death, the sect also intentionally encourages sword fights between people at the same level. The most typical rule is that if someone asks you to fight, you have to pay a large amount of spiritual stones if you refuse. This kind of atmosphere and environment makes everyone very aggressive. Even a gentle character like Senior Sister Anne has to pretend to be extremely vicious, otherwise she will be treated as a soft persimmon. In this way, Junior Sister's Yu is more suitable to go to Shuanshan King sect. With her competitive personality, whenever she is unhappy, she will go to a junior brother or sister to fight, and she will immediately become enlightened. On the contrary, in Kunlun, everyone is busy breathing and refining ki, so she can't let go of her hands and feet. If she holds it in her heart, won't it become a flaw in her Tao heart? Alas, it's all a problem of the sect's atmosphere. Qiu Changtime still remembers that in the Four Kings Shore land of the Lygome Trial Secret Realm, Junior Sisters Yu led the Azuras to kill the Celestials and ushered in victory after victory. At the time, her face was indeed filled with a pure smile from the bottom of her heart. Now, all he needs to do is to use the same trick again and bring that smile back to Junior Sister. Take down the Kunlun fellow disciples. Zhu Yingyan was puzzled for a moment, and then became a little angry. "You want me to crush those junior brothers and sisters who were weaker than me?" "Hilly." Qiu Changtime shook his head and smiled. "Yingyan." "What?" Zhu Yingyan was a little uncomfortable when she called him by his name, and his attention was quickly diverted. "If we don't look at the cultivation level, just talk about swordsmanship, how do you compare to third junior brother Guanzhen?" Qiu Changtime asked with a smile. "On par with each other," Zhu Yingyan said hesitantly. "On par with each other?" Qiu Changtai said seriously, how does the Kunlun sword controlling technique compare to the Shushan sword controlling technique, or even the secret sword controlling technique of the Longsiguan family? Zhu Yingyan was silent for a moment, and sighed. Not as good. Qiu Changtai then asked like a machine gun. Since the sophistication of the Kunlun sword controlling technique is far inferior to the secret sword controlling technique of the Longsiguan family that specializes in swordsmanship, then has junior sister been immersed in swordsmanship for decades longer than junior brother Guan, so that she is so far superior in combat experience? Or is it that junior sister's talent in swordsmanship is so outstanding that junior brother Guan cannot match her? Zhu Yingyan hesitated to speak, and after a long while he admitted insincerely, in terms of swordsmanship alone, it is true that I cannot definitely beat junior brother Guan for the time being. Okay. Qiu Changtai clapped his hands and laughed. In that case, how about we try to improve your swordsmanship so that you can definitely beat him? This? Zhu Yingyan was confused. As Qiu Changtai said, he could not surpass Gyunzin in terms of talent, and he was also on par with him in terms of experience. He was far behind in swordsmanship. How could he win in a swordsmanship contest? Unless he relied on a flying sword. However, Yuanzhen also received a 10th order flying sword from the trial in the palace recently. I don't have an advantage in this equipment, do I? Are you scared, junior sister? Qiu Changtai said with a smile. Scared? Zhu Yingyan blurted out immediately, how is it possible? She subconsciously wanted to say I'm not even afraid of you, how can I be afraid of junior brother, but it was too disappointing to say so. She changed the words to how is it possible when she thought about it, and because of the prestige of her elder senior brother, she forced herself to change them to how is it possible. That's it. Qiu Changtai laughed. Yinlian, don't belittle yourself, you are my junior sister recognized by Qiu Changtai. Invincible character, synchronization value +1. I'm not belittling myself. Zhu Yingyan got angry and said in a muffled voice, Humph, I certainly know my own potential, but you tell me, how can I beat him in swordsmanship? Of course, fencing with me. Qiu Changtai said loudly. Zhu Yingyan gritted her teeth. When Qiu Changtai borrowed the training method of Jingang Fenlin Yuanshan and crushed Zhu Yingyan with his extremely strong swordsmanship and pushed her to the limit, her subconscious reaction was to hold on. Never escape, never show weakness, never admit defeat. She performed a few points stronger than Ling Yunpo at the beginning. Qiu Changtai secretly praised in his heart and said, don't think about the gap between you and me. What you really want to defeat is the cowardly self who always wants to give up in your heart. Of course I know. Zhu Yingyan said viciously. Highly concentrated and long-term control of the flying sword made her physical strength and were on the verge of collapse. But she still gritted her teeth and mobilized the little remaining true energy, and continued to work Jia to block the attack of Yu Yanjian. It's okay. Qiu Changtai suddenly put away the flying sword, take a rest first. Zhu Yingyan trembled and recalled Yu Jia's sword, and then slowly meditated on that blue stone next to her to recover her true energy. Next, let's talk about your swordsmanship problems. Qiu Changtai didn't let her rest. Because this girl is prone to random thoughts when she is idle. Once she thinks about random thoughts, she is prone to get stuck in a dead end and then start to be obsessed. Therefore, based on Ling Yunpo's sword training experience, Qiu Changtai planned to use the high-pressure training method for her, using a full training schedule to occupy all her time, so that she has no chance to think about anything. Sure enough, when it comes to problems in swordsmanship, Zhu Yinlian, although already exhausted, still forced herself to listen. Although they used the same Kunlun sword controlling technique, relying on the analogy in the swordsmanship, Qiu Changtai's swordsmanship attainments at this time had already completely crushed Zhu Yinlian. Under normal circumstances, this girl might not be able to accept the fact, the gap between me and my senior brother is so big, but Zhu Yinlian didn't have the time at this moment. She just listened attentively, absorbing the sword knowledge that Qiu Changtai instilled in her like a sponge. There was only one firm thought in her heart, circling over and over again, and couldn't be driven away. I must defeat Yuanzhen in swordsmanship. Then, find a way to surpass my senior brother. After a few days, Qiu Changtai realized that his junior sister's swordsmanship had improved by leaps and bounds, so he announced the end of the training and took her to Yuanzhen to challenge her to a sword fight. No need to change cultivation, no need to use Taoism, just look at swordsmanship. Yuanzhen, who didn't understand, said in astonishment. In terms of swordsmanship alone, let alone senior sisters you, even if your senior brother Kia came here, wasn't he easily suppressed by me? That's right. Zhu Yingyan said coldly. Although she still had a look of fatigue between her eyebrows, her temperament was like a sword that had just been tempered in water, cold and sharp. Okay. Yuanzhen sneered. Since you want to humiliate yourself, you can't blame me. Hearing that senior sisters Yu was going to challenge junior brother Yuan in swordsmanship, Chenxin and others could no longer stay in the cave, and hurriedly followed the sword light and went to watch the battle with senior brother Qiu. Chapter 74. What a straight attack! The process of the sword duel was dull and unimpressive. For the junior brothers and sisters, it might be considered a wonderful battle. There was no gorgeous Taoist method that would settle the matter, only the fighting between the flying swords, mixed with countless attacks and defenses, so that everyone watched intently, deeply worried about the outcome of the sword duel. Only Qiu Changtian was bored. These two Kunlun noobs pecked at each other, and they didn't know how to conceal their attacking intentions, let alone tactical deception. They were just pure offensive and defense and attack, to see who would make a mistake first and reveal a flaw. Of course, such a battle was extremely beneficial to Zhu Yingyan, because after this period of training, Qiu Changtian was very clear about the girl's unyielding will, and how exaggerated it was. If Yuanzhen fought a protracted war with her, he would be dragged into the field she was most familiar with, and the result would definitely be defeated by her strong will. Sure enough, after a long tug-of-war, Yuanzhen soon ran out of energy. As soon as he showed a flaw, Zhu Yingyan immediately urged the Yujie sword to cut in. Yuanzhen saw that he couldn't defend, so he made a sword gesture, gave up defense and attacked with all his strength, ready to die with her. Seeing that the two flying swords were about to penetrate each other at the same time, suddenly a thunder from the outside of the field hit Yuanzhen's flying sword. At the same time, Qiu Changtian's giant sword also shot out and blocked Zhu Yingyan's Yujie sword. I lost. Before he could speak, Yuanzhen said coldly, recalled the flying sword, and left without looking back. On the sword-fighting field, Zhu Yingyan also took back the Yujie sword and waved his fist vigorously at Qiu Changtian outside the field. The meaning was naturally I won. Qiu Changtian smiled in response, and found that the stagnation between Zhu Yingyan's eyebrows had obviously dissipated a lot. In the sky in the distance, Zhu Changqing also stood with a sword, looking at the high-spirited Zhu Yingyan below. He breathed a long sigh of relief, thinking to himself, Master said that the person who tied the bell must be the one to untie it, and now it seems that it is true. Rather than saying that Yingyan was possessed by the devil because she wanted to win but failed, it would be better to say that she wanted to catch up with Qiu Changtian, but found that the two were still getting farther and farther away, and she was shaken by fear, which led to her flaws. What she really wanted was not victory, but Qiu Changtian's recognition. Thinking of this, Zhu Changqing landed. Zhu Yingyan was about to walk down the sword competition field, but when he saw his great-grandfather suddenly come in, he stopped. Yingyan just won beautifully. How come your swordsmanship has improved so much recently? Zhu Changqing encouraged. I have been studying hard with my senior brother for a while. Zhu Yingyan did not deny it. Although his expression was reserved, there was a smile between his eyebrows. At the edge of the field, Yuanzhen, who was angry because of the loss, and Chenxin, Jiankingnan and others who were very excited, cast their slightly eager eyes at Qiu Changtian after hearing the words. You can learn swordsmanship from me. Qiu Changtian said to everyone gently, like junior sisters you, follow me to practice in the future, and I will teach you. So everyone began to tangle again. Learning swordsmanship is good, but if you have to exchange it for time spent on training outside, it becomes difficult to choose. After all, the most important thing for a cultivator is the realm of cultivation. If you don't spend enough time on perfecting the purple mansion during the foundation building period, it will affect the final grade of the elixir. There are 9 grades of elixir, and there are 3 grades: upper, middle and lower. If the elixir is of the lower 3rd grade, the speed of cultivation at the golden elixir stage will be seriously dragged down, and it will even be difficult to survive to the infant stage with a normal lifespan. Senior brother Qiu and senior sisters Yu, one has a clear mind and the other has a 7-orifice mind. They both have the bonus of the talent for cultivation, so they dare to take time to go out for training, or practice swordsmanship and Taoism. But they don't have the confidence to say that they can practice key skills and swordsmanship and Taoism at the same time, and can also ensure the smooth formation of the elixir in the future. Seeing that the junior brothers and sisters were obviously hesitant, Qiu Changtian didn't force them, but just asked them to go back and think about it slowly. When you decide, come to him again. After dismissing his junior brothers and sisters, Zhu Chang King pulled Qiu Chang's time aside and took out a flying sword and handed it to him. This is the 10th level gold-based flying sword Jade Dragon. Zhu Chang King said in a deep voice, the Zhu family of Tianan gives it to Chang Tian. Qiu Chang Tian took the flying sword solemnly and nodded in thanks. The 10th level flying sword was the standard for disciples of various sects in ancient times, but now it has become a non-renewable resource due to the loss of sword-making methods. With Qiu Chang Tian's status as the chief of cunning, it is not impossible to get a 10th level flying sword if he really wants to spend time, but he was still a little surprised that the Zhu family of Tianan gave him one when they met. Well, it feels like someone is flattering him. Yin Yan, I will leave it to you from now on. Zhu Chang King said seriously. I will take good care of my junior sister. Qiu Chang Tian answered seriously. Zhu Chang King smiled faintly, and without correcting his junior sister title, he rode the sword light and left. What did your great-grandfather give you? Zhu Yingyan walked over and asked. Oh, it's just a flying sword. Qiu Chang Tian said lightly. The Jade Dragon sword. Zhu Yingyan stared at the long sword in his hand and said, strange, they actually spent a lot of money. Why? Qiu Chang Tian asked in surprise. The Tianan Zhu family now has 8 10th level flying swords besides Yu Jie. Zhu Yingyan said reservedly, the Yu Jie sword must not be passed down to Zhu family members. It was originally my great-grandfather's sword, and later he gave it to me. Besides Yu Jie, the strongest one is the Jade Dragon sword. As far as I know, everyone in the family who is interested in cultivating immortals is eyeing this sword, but the family actually gave it to you. Really? Qiu Chang Tian immediately understood that this meant that the Tianan Zhu family treated him as one of their own. Of course. Zhu Yingyan also understood and blushed a little. I'm a little tired, accompany me back. Okay. The two of them rode the sword light and returned to the Jinlian cave mansion. In front of Zhu Yingyan's cave, there were many more cranes, standing gracefully on one leg, combing their feathers with their long beaks. Perhaps because she had just won and was in a good mood, Zhu Yingyan took a basket of herbs from the cave and fed them to the cranes one by one. Help me, she said lightly. Kunlun Mirror keenly sensed that the atmosphere was changing, and immediately removed the disguise hint of the mirror flowers and water moons, and the aura of the king around Qiu Chang Tian began to slowly dissipate. Yeah. Qiu Chang Tian took the basket of herbs and helped feed the cranes. These white-haired birds were not afraid of him, but just stood there lazily, waiting for his herbs to be fed to their mouths, then opened their beaks to pick up the food, raised their heads and swallowed it. Somehow, Qiu Chang Tian suddenly remembered the 3 types of livestock in the secret realm of the palace, and he had turned into a crane at the time. Zhu Yingyan stood at the door of the cave and looked at him, and suddenly found that his temperament had dissipated. The sharp aura of a genius and the arrogant temperament that always made her feel like a thorn in her throat seemed to have completely disappeared. So Zhu Yingyan mustered up her courage and said in a faint tone, besides me, the only one who can make these cranes not reject this is my senior brother. Junior sister Jian has tried many times. No matter what she holds in her hand, even if it is a 1,000-year-old polygon multiple run, as long as she approaches, these cranes will immediately spread their wings and fly away. Maybe it's because I have a unique affinity for animals. Qiu Chang Tian replied. No, it's arrogance. Zhu Yingyan was silent for a moment and said, only arrogant people of the same kind can get the recognition of these cranes. Senior brother and I are the same kind of people. Or in other words, he is more arrogant than me. So, if I ask you directly, you will definitely not bother to lie to me, right? She slowly lowered her eyes and looked at the ground, her eyelashes trembling slightly. Senior brother, do you like me? Qiu Chang Tian looked at her in surprise. Chapter 75. The Riddler's natural counterpart to the arrogant junior sister. Brother, do you like me? Zhu Yingyan didn't look at him, but just stared at the ground calmly. Qiu Chang Tian looked at her in surprise. After a while, he suddenly smiled and said, which one is real, the moon in the sky or the moon in the water? Zhu Yingyan, who was nervous, immediately thought quickly. The moon in the sky is naturally real, but it is difficult to touch. The moon in the water is within reach, but it is ultimately illusory. So what the brother meant was to ask me whether I wanted to hear nice lies represented by the moon in the water, or unknown truths represented by the moon in the sky. Nice lies, of course, he likes me, but what's the point of such lies? The moon in the water is so close, but it will break if touched, so why bother to linger? Zhu Yingyan said without hesitation, even if it is out of reach, I also want to see the moon through the clouds and get a glimpse of the true heart. Qiu Changhan blinked, then laughed. Junior sister, what are you talking about? Did I understand it wrong? Zhu Yingyan frowned slightly and began to think again. If the moon in the water and the moon in the sky do not represent lies and truth respectively, then what do they represent? Well, let's stop here for today. Qiu Changhan said leisurely, I will continue to teach you Taoism tomorrow. Okay. Zhu Yingyan nodded slightly. With her competitive spirit, she certainly would not admit defeat directly and asked Qiu Changhan for the answer to this sharp question. She wanted to go back to the cave to think about it carefully. Qiu Changhan once again rode the sword light and headed for the Sutra library. He only heard Kunlun Mirror curiously asked, what do you mean by the moon in the water and the moon in the sky you just mentioned? It doesn't mean anything. Qiu Changhan was silent for a moment and said, I just said it casually to divert her attention. Kunlun Mirror. Even such a situation can be made up by you. It really wanted to use a word to describe this guy, but it couldn't think of what that word was for a while. Then when she reacts, she will continue to ask. Kunlun Mirror reminded him. How did she react? Qiu Changhan sneered, my answer is in this riddle. If she can't solve the riddle, it means she has lost to me in intelligence. Do you think she will admit defeat and then ask me what this riddle means? Wow. Kunlun still couldn't figure out what the word was, and could only use an emotionless interjection to express his complicated feelings. Next is Taoism. Qiu Changhan said confidently, the reason why junior sister's you had a demon in her heart is because she lost to me in terms of the power of Taoism. However, what Taoism can be compared with thunder magic? The practice of thunder magic is extremely difficult and risky. If the power can be compared, then the thunder cultivators would have been extinct long ago. Besides, thunder magic is instantaneous output damage, while the great light fire is continuous damage. She wants to compete with me in instant output. Is she crazy? I think she picked the wrong opponent. I have to find some noobs to abuse her and restore her confidence. She did pick the wrong opponent. Kunlun thought to himself. How did Zhu Yingyan's inner demon come about in the first place? Don't you, the great villain, really have any idea? Wait, if we really want to talk about the root cause, it was me who first chose him as the savior, which led him to harm junior sister Zhu. The villain turned out to be me. Kunlun fell into a state of confused self-doubt. In the next few days, Qiu Changhan sacrificed a lot of time to take Zhu Yingyan around to visit and compete with the direct disciples of the elders. Senior brother Liu, I heard that you have recently practiced your Yangbingou divine art, so I came to ask for advice. Qiu Changhan said with a smile. Senior brother Liu asked in confusion. I'm at the Wafu level, and you were just at the Shixi level. Are you sure you want to ask me for advice? Yes. Zhu Yingyan said seriously. After a while, after competing in Taoism near Kongling, senior brother Liu's expression was already dull. The great bright fire released by Zhu Yingyan was actually comparable to his Yangbingou in terms of killing range, but its power was even better. On his side, the burning rocks and obvious soil fragments were almost melted and solidified into glass. This, junior sister Zhu is really at the marrow cleansing stage. A cultivator of the marrow cleansing stage, whose truth has not been refined into pure essence, how can her Taoism have such terrible power? Are all the disciples of the 280th generation monsters? Zhu Yingyan calmly withdrew the Taoism formula, as if it was not surprising that he had won the Taoism competition against senior brother Liu at the Wafu stage. Qiu Changhan smiled and said, Senior brother Liu's burning Yangbingou is really fierce and fierce. Junior brother just watched, but I have a few questions to ask. He asked the questions one by one, all of which were common basic questions in the use of Taoism. Senior brother Liu patiently answered them one by one. Qiu Changhan nodded slightly in thanks, and then smiled and shared some of his own experience in using thunder magic, asking senior brother Liu for guidance and correction. After this exchange, senior brother Liu no longer felt embarrassed and awkward about losing to the younger generation. He just secretly sighed that Qiu Changhan's social skills were so skillful that he made people feel like spring breeze. He really deserved to be the chief of this generation, praised by his peers. Zhu Yingyan stood by, seemingly listening to the conversation between the two, but in fact, she was shocked and happy. She was happy that she actually defeated senior brother Liu, who was at the Wafu level. She was shocked that she could win because of Qiu Changhan's guidance. In just a dozen words, it was like a revelation, which made Zhu Yingyan's understanding of that great light fire almost a qualitative leap. However, what she couldn't understand was why Qiu Changtian had such a profound understanding of that fire system. Isn't it the Thunder method that he usually uses? Of course, Qiu Changtian would never tell her that he mastered the ancestral immortal art of the five elements Taoism, the postnatal great five elements extinction divine light, so he could give Zhu Yingyan unique inspiration and guidance in the use of the great light fire. Therefore, as Zhu Yingyan was thinking secretly, Qiu Changtian, who was communicating with senior brother Liu, heard the continuous prompts of Kunlun Mirror. Invincible setting, synchronization value +1. Invincible setting, synchronization value +1. Invincible setting, synchronization value +1. Qiu Changtian. Wait, it was junior sisters Yu who succeeded in pretending. Why did my synchronization value increase? Puzzled, he said goodbye to senior brother Liu and took junior sisters Yu back to Jinlan Cave Mansion. After defeating people he thought he could not defeat in swordsmanship and Taoism, Zhu Yingyan's expression was completely normal at this time, and he returned to his original cold and reserved appearance. There was no more depression between her eyebrows, and her heart was full of confidence. Even if she could not defeat senior brother Qiu for the time being, she was confident that she could defeat 99% of the foundation-building disciples of Kunlun Taiking's sect. Senior brother Qiu was just the last gatekeeper she needed to challenge. In short, she was very happy. After sending Zhu Yingyan back to the cave, Qiu Changtian was about to turn around when Zhu Yingyan suddenly called him again. "Brother! What's the matter?" Qiu Changtian turned around and asked. That, Zhu Yingyan hesitated. She wanted to ask Qiu Changtian what the moon in the sky and the moon in the water meant, but she didn't want to admit defeat to her brother and say that she couldn't solve his riddle. Ahem. Finally, Zhu Yingyan coughed and said unnaturally, "Thank you for your hard work." Qiu Changtian smiled slightly, then said seriously, "It's nothing, after all. How can my junior sister Qiu Changtian fall behind anyone except me?" Invincible character, synchronization value +1. Kunlun Mirror said with a sigh. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.